Podcasting with YouTube for maximum success. Good morning and welcome to the Marketing Club. My name is Favor, Favour, because I'm sure you already know how it's spelled because you see it on Clubhouse, you see it on social, you see it on podcasts, but I wanted to spell it out. And then Obasi-ike is Obasi-Ike. I'm your host today, and I'm so excited to share with you some insights about podcasting with success using YouTube. You can even say podcasting for success because when you're successful podcasting, what you get on the receiving end is a beautiful experience. And I'm going to show you what that experience looks like with my podcast because there are things that you have to think about when starting a podcast, when building a podcast. There's so many things you have to think about, and this is one of them. So I am excited that I am here with you this morning to really break this down, break this concept down, break this idea down, break the walls down, because you are thinking about your business on a daily basis and people are thinking about you on a daily basis, right? So how do you make sure that on a daily basis you still stay on top of people's minds, right? And that is how you have to start thinking about your business from the ground up, right? And that is where you have to start thinking about podcasting for YouTube. Now, when you say for something, it's because you're doing it. I can say it again, for the person or for the experience, right? But at the same time, you have to think about goals that you have to reach. And these goals that you have to reach have timelines, right? And these timelines have responsibilities, they have tasks, they have, activities. Like it's let's say it's an RFP, it's a request for proposal, it's a referral, it's a business, it's an idea, it's an entity. Those are things that you have to think about long term. Because when you think about these information pieces long term, you are starting to give people the idea, the impression, the value, the thought process that you have something to give. And this thing that you are giving to them is something that they actually need your expertise on, your experience in. Because using a platform to really bring people into your world is one of the hardest things to do in today's world because there's so much attention on other things. There's so much attention on what people are doing, what people are thinking, how people are thinking. And then you have to wonder about how you're processing it yourself, long term. So your business has to thrive on the success point of giving your podcast value for its own space, its own experience, its own thing, so that you as a business also enjoy it. Because it's one thing to be on YouTube, right? It's one thing to be on YouTube. Welcome, Minnie. It's one thing to be on YouTube, but it's really a great thing to be on a podcast that is on YouTube that you didn't have to upload on YouTube. That's the difference between podcasting with YouTube for maximum success, right? And some of you may have a podcast, some of you may have a YouTube show, some of you may have a book, you might have something that you're working on. Hey, Minnie, welcome. What's
Hello.
up? How are you?
Not a whole lot, man. I'm chilling, man. I'm excited, yeah, about the political ticket. So yeah, I'm good.
That's good. That's good. Glad to have you here, Minnie. Are you on YouTube?
Yep, I'm going on mute because my phone's going off because of just what happened. Just because of what just happened. So yeah.
What just happened?
Kamala just picked her running mate. I'm going on mute because my phone is
Oh
blowing up.
yeah, that's heavy. Okay, that's breaking news right there.
Yes, and she picked. Well, I she picked Walls, which is a great choice, right? So yeah, I'm excited, but I'm going on mute because my phone is blowing up. So yeah.
No problem, no problem. Thank you, Minnie, for joining, and appreciate you for the time that you're here with us today. And thank you, John, for being here. I appreciate the time too. Podcasting with YouTube for success is one of the greatest things that you could, plan or just think about long term. And why I'm really bringing YouTube in is because with YouTube, if you're sending an email, if you're sending a newsletter, if you're sending a message and it has let me say a blog too, because I could also go to your website. If you do these things with your podcast and reference your show through YouTube, it's something I noticed. It's like people are more receptive to watching, listening to you on YouTube or discovering you on YouTube. I think it's because they've been used to being on YouTube. So the psychological, emotional, and logical marketing idea framework would be that you would naturally go to Google first, then you would go to YouTube, sorry, and then you would go to Pinterest next. I was thinking about the three. So Google, YouTube, Pinterest. Within those three, some people go to Reddit too, but within those three, majorly, people find information from there and then they discover where to go from there. So think about like when you're driving, you get to stop sign, you wait, you make a turn. Now, that turn that you're making is going to the direction where your audience could be because you're sending them through a channel that you're using consistently. So if you're using Google to push your podcast as a website, as a link, right? Welcome, Edward. Welcome, Julie. When you use your podcast to now spring your podcast forward with YouTube, because after Google is YouTube, then you're allowing your YouTube account to get awareness, get brand authority, get engagement. Even if it's a little engagement, it's better than zero. And you're also building a system that is allowing you to also index that page as a video page. Because when you think about a video page allows you, right, to get more context out of that page than just a normal blog page. Because blog pages are great, right? It's great for text, it's great for schema, it's great for markup. But at the same time, when you use YouTube and you plug in or connect your video, right? Because it's on YouTube, it's a video now. Yes, it's a podcast. Yes, it's audio, but it's a video. It's in a video file format. And you didn't have to upload that video on YouTube because you parsed it through an RSS feed, right? Because when you think about really simple syndication, that word syndication is a term that we just talk about, but the word syndication, when you look at it for movies, when you look at it for series, when you look at it for different things, right? That syndication allows you to think about the process, the commotions. If you kind of put it like that, it's like a collateral damage. But if you look at it positively, if you look at it from the brighter side, it's where you are creating impact on a large scale. So to syndicate, according to Oxford Dictionary, right, is a group of individuals or organizations combined to promote some common interest. right? That's one word you can think about for, syndicate. Another word would be to, that a particular transaction or enterprise, right? Strong matches. Like, you can start thinking about the word syndicate in different ways. A group of people or businesses that work together as a team, that's a syndicate, right? There are different examples, there are different types, there are different definitions. So however the context you want to place it in might fit in for you, but the root out of every single one of them is that there's a commonality between the people connected. There's a common interest. Everybody's going to CNN because they watch CNN. Everyone's going to Fox because they love watching Fox. Everyone goes to BBC because they want to watch BBC. Everybody goes to Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Huffing Spot, name it, right? Target, Walmart, Tesla, Cybertruck, whatever it is, right? People go to those places because they want to be part of those communities. Apple, Samsung, right? You can see the trend. So when you think about podcasting with YouTube, you're no longer thinking about YouTube as a place where you upload videos. The mindset shifts. It's a place people discover information, right? So if you have news, if you have relatable content, if you have responsive content, if you have information that people can actually understand, then they can listen to your podcast on YouTube for the first time and then find your podcast on Apple, on Spotify. Most people, through the 5 years I've just been doing podcasting, I ask people, where do you listen to podcasts? Sometimes some of them I even ask, do you even listen to podcasts? Some of them say no. So I'm not surprised anymore, because before I thought everyone listens to a podcast, but when I started talking to a few friends, they're like, no, we don't. Some of them say, yeah, we do. I get to ask them, which ones do they do listen to? How long do they listen to them? Some of them are avid listeners. Some of them are active listeners. Some of them are passive listeners. Some of them are not even listening. So where do you draw the line? And how do you draw the line? And how far is the line drawn? So when you think about maximum success, you're thinking about years from now. Placement, positioning equals sales, right? So your placement matters. So imagine running a YouTube ad to your podcast show on YouTube. That's one thing you could do. Or you could just leave it there organically, because if you're video indexing your pages on Google, what starts to happen is if somebody searches for something on Google and there's a YouTube video, your video could be part of that 3-pack. That's where we're trying to go. The goal is not just to show up on YouTube. The goal is to show up outside YouTube, outside the YouTube property field, into another source, through Pinterest, through Google, through your podcast, through your website, right? So when you have that authority with your domain authority, and then you're being featured on different sites, different third-party sites, it changes, right? I remember talking about first-party data, and it's been something I've been noticing has been, how do people, connect those dots? How do you build? There's so many things that you can do right now that will allow your business to grow. Because with YouTube, if somebody subscribes to your YouTube channel, guess what? That's second party data. They've subscribed, but you don't know who they are. You might know who they are because you can see their username, but you don't have that email address. You don't have that contact information. YouTube does. So when you think about your zero party data, first party data, second party data, and third party data, you're looking at all the data points across different fields to understand why your business is doing the way it's doing, or what it's doing, how it's doing, where it's doing well, right? I was having a meeting with a client yesterday, and I was looking into her audience, and come to find out, a lot of women in Fiji, the country, are looking for coaches to help with women empowerment. So we looked at and then in the US, number one is DC, right? I'm just giving you guys like quick insights because we went really deep into research to get there. So why I'm saying this is when you start thinking about like her, she's gonna start doing like workshop events, live events, because she's a hairstylist. She's able to connect with other people, show that woman empowerment. She has her podcast. She's trying to build that stance because she already has that experience, but online it's not showing the same. So a lot of us may have that experience, may have that skill. It's on your resume, but no one can see your resume online. If that makes sense, you have so much potential, but it's not seen because it's not actualized, it's not realized. So how do you realize or actualize your brand? By showing up on search engines that have high potential value, high traffic, high demand, and high activity. So if you're on Google, you're on YouTube, you're on Pinterest, you're pretty much within that top 1 to 10% gap. So if you're on social media, you're enjoying it. Because you're on TikTok, you have all those thousands of followers. Great. Hooray. If those 400,000, 100,000, 10,000, 1,000, 2 people are not on your list, are not connected to you outside those platforms, if anything is to happen to those platforms, you're gone. Look at Clubhouse, for example. We all had followers here, right? And then boom, we don't have any more followers. Now we have friends. So, what are we doing with the time we're spending, right? There has to be some type of value exchange. There has to be some type of idea exchange. There has to be some type of realization exchange because the more we realize that we are connecting the dots over and over and over and over and over again, there's going to be a system that's going to repeat itself whereby people are going to be searching in search mode looking for your content and giving you that content responsively because you're actually being found on search. If they say, "Hey, we found you on Google," that thing warms my heart because it's like, wow. So it is possible. I've heard clients come to me and say, "Hey, they say they found us on Google. A year later, we did this, boom, boom." And I'm like, yeah. One of them, they do waist beads. She started off, it's called Modern Natured, right? And they started off with waist beads. They were just trying to sell waist beads. Really good friend of mine. She's Ghanaian and she's been in Atlanta. That was when I was in Atlanta. And we said, okay, 2020, let's write articles about waist beads because there's this whole misconception about waist beads or what are the waist beads used for? Who wears waist beads? What's the value? Where's the history? I said, all right, you know what? We're going to demystify this and we're going to actualize this. So we demystified it by putting it in an article. If you write right now, how to lose weight with waist beads, you can find that article from Modern Nature. It's still there. That was 2021 article we did. So we connected to our Google Search Console. Boom. The next year, it blew out. From there, we said, okay, let's put you on Pinterest. She's already on YouTube. She had a Google account, but they were never connected because Google Search Console is a product. So when you don't connect the Google products can't talk to each other, right? So when you connect Google Workshop to Google Search Console to Google Analytics, you're thinking about the parent, Google, then you're thinking about the suffix, the products, right? So when you put the products with the parents together, you're creating a responsive system that allows you to actualize and realize your product outside the brand. So when you put it out on YouTube, put it out on Pinterest, put it out on Google, these platforms allow you to actually see beyond that platform. Because if you have a podcast, yeah, it's on Google, yeah, it's on Apple, but if it's not everywhere else or anywhere else, then that streaming, that actualization doesn't come into play all the time. So your goal is to create experiences that people can find you so that you can actually think about where they're thinking about you, right? For me, I noticed that people were listening to when I put it on YouTube, I was really skeptical. I was like, I don't know if I should put the podcast on YouTube. Then, YouTube came out with RSS feed submission because I'm like, I'm not going to upload all these episodes one by one. That is redundant. I mean, it's great, but it's time consuming. Like there has to be a different way. So thank God they came up with a different way. Submission came in. Now you can put your YouTube RSS feed there. Now, when you do that, anytime you upload something, it's on YouTube. It's on YouTube Music, right? It's on YouTube TV. I ended up seeing someone listening to my podcast from PlayStation. That's when I knew, okay, all right, there's an audience here because you don't need 1,000 impressions to get one impression of a person. If somebody shows you the first impression, that's what you're going to last with. That's what you're going to stick with. So when you see one impression on your search console, that's your first party data. That is information that you need to understand and see. Because if you ignore that, it's like ignoring a baby cry or ignoring someone that needs help, right? Don't look at that one impression and say, oh, that's nobody. That's somebody. That person is looking for a specific question and you don't have the answer because it's not in form of a page. Now, when you create that page, that's the page they can respond to. And when they sign up to your email list, that's because you welcome them in. And then from there, you build that relationship. They show up to your event. You guys shake hands. You take selfies. You have a great time. Businesses are doing well. You're impacting people's lives, people's families, and life is beautiful. That's the goal. Not just to make a sale, not just to make whatever, but to actually build relationships and build experiences. So I'm gonna pause right there and pass it over to anyone. Minnie, Liverpool's finest, Maxine. Welcome to the room. Thanks for being here. Good morning, and I'll pass it to y'all.
Thank you, Favor. I'm here actually to receive this morning because podcasting with YouTube for maximum success sounded like something that I would love to learn about because I have been on YouTube for quite a while, but I haven't really done anything with it because that my focus wasn't really there. I was busy serving clients and then realized that, okay, you know what? I'm no longer comfortable with what's coming in. I want more. And so now I'm in that I want more phase where I want to really start doing a lot of content creation. So I'm really interested in the type of tools. I've heard people talk about Taja as a major tool. There's a guy in my city in Detroit, and he has probably about 500,000 subscribers in the tech world doing a lot of cybersecurity stuff. And he said he's an old guy, so he doesn't know anything about internet or any of that stuff. But he said, "Hey, this one thing I've used," and he talks about Taja. I'm curious what you think about Taja AI because I've heard a lot about it and people who have been successful on YouTube have talked about that being one of the things that have helped.
Please spell it. Taja.
Taja AI. Apparently, it helps you with one thing I couldn't. I that discouraged me on YouTube to really spend my time there was going in and doing the shorts, putting the description in, putting this, putting that, deciding what kind of links I'm going to throw in that are going to link back to my stuff, and doing that constantly all day just was like, I don't have time for this. But then Taja AI apparently can do that. So it basically will go ahead and use AI to fill all that stuff in for you in a way that's supposedly optimized. I'm not sure how good it is, but that's something that's on my radar.
Thank you for sharing that, Maxine. I actually look, I've never heard of Taja AI, and I just went to the link to just look at it, and I'm already seeing things. So I want to also like kind of break it down so that I can, this is first time seeing this. So this is what I'm giving is first hand information. So as soon as I open this link, I see it, I click on it, I scroll about 30% down the middle, I get a pop-up saying, join 7,650 plus creators who subscribe. One, what has just happened is I don't know who Taja AI is. I don't know what Taja AI is. And I don't know what is going on. All I now know is that they have a community of over 7,000 people. So do I want to be the next person in line or do I want to step out of line? So it's for you to decide. So right now they're like, hey, get 25% off by joining our newsletter. That is already a way of saying, hey, we're not just 7,000 creators here. We also have an exclusive community where you can actually get 25% off and you can learn about it. It could be our AI tool for 25% off. It could be an event for 25% off. Who knows? That's what I'm seeing. So I'm going to leave my email address because I want to see what, they're talking about. So I'm joining. Boom. Now I clicked on it. I have a coupon code. So I'm sure that coupon code will be emailed to me too. It's like scratch to reveal. I love that concept. Now, when I'm looking at the section, I'm actually scrolling down on Taja AI and I'm seeing it publish videos within a fraction of time. Now, what I'm noticing with Taja is that Huh.
So it used to be not like this. You know, a lot of these AI companies, when they first come out, it'll be like pay one time on the 199 to use for life for the lifetime, right?
Mm-hmm.
But because they've, I wish I did it back then when it was like that on like AppSumo or something, where new AI companies come on. I'm not sure. I'm in this community, so I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about. But when they go on AppSumo, they just put stuff out one lifetime, you know, subscribers, and they gain some momentum that way by getting a whole bunch of people who get to use it. And it was like that. I think it was like only $20 a month, and you could use it in an unlimited way after that whole initial. And then now I'm seeing that they have $105 per year for only 48 videos. Who's only producing 48 videos a year? Is that per year or is that per month? That's what I'm trying to understand. It's not very clear on their
Yeah.
site the way they set
Yeah.
it up. And a lot of these AI companies, they're behind a computer. They're not marketers. You know what I mean? So the marketing sometimes in their websites are not the greatest because that's not their niche really. That's not their strength. I mean, so
Exactly. No, I
I'm gonna
love that.
I'm gonna look into it more and see if I can connect with them directly and ask them, because this is just, it's a kind of a hot mess here, right? And even their pricing strategy is doesn't look, their new pricing strategy looks not the greatest. 144 videos a year, is that a lot? That's
It's
pretty decent actually, isn't it?
it's decent because if you think about doing it in a week, once a week, that's 52 videos in a year. So you're getting twice. But you also have to look at the experience, the culture, who's working behind the scenes. Is it AI drive? Is it you driving it? Like, what is the major goal I'm seeing? And normally what I like to do, like as you were speaking, I was just like, let me see a little bit more. Because sometimes when someone goes to a website, they stop there. I go like deeper. So I went into their LinkedIn. That was my first point of action, and they got an error message. So that told me either they haven't connected their LinkedIn account properly to their website, or they actually don't have a LinkedIn account. Because I got actually a red bar. LinkedIn is blue. I got a red headline. I got a red. Actually, I'm gonna, do I have it? No, I had to take it off because I didn't know when it to stay on my page, but it turned red. It said an error occurred. So that to me, if I talk to them, that's the first thing I want to talk to them about. Not because of anything, but I want them to get better experiences. Why? Because when you have broken pages on your website, when you have broken links on your website, that's going to hurt you more than help you. So you're actually getting hurt because now I don't even know their LinkedIn. I don't even have time to go to type Taja AI on LinkedIn. I mean, I would do it, but the experience is the trust is already broken in a way, because that's easy. That shouldn't even be a problem, but it is a problem. So those are the little things I look at. Yeah, you can go on Instagram, do reels, go crazy, get thousands of followers. I don't use Instagram as a metric. I use it for social engagement metrics, but I go to LinkedIn, I go to their Google, I go to their actual website to see if they're actually legit. Because, like you said, their pricing is different. You might pay for that and then get a whole different experience than working with an agency that does that plus more. So it's like people are trying to cut corners or use AI to get things done, but instead looking at the bigger picture, because we're talking about maximum success. It's not just after 100 videos, then what? If you have 500 episodes, how do you get those 500 episodes across 500 channels, 500 subscribers? Because with YouTube, when you look at those 35 views, those 16 views, those 200 views, don't dismiss those views, because those views are actually people who are bottom funnel connected. What do I mean by bottom funnel connected? It means that they searched for something specific, they found you as a resource, and if there's a link attached, and if you made sense, and if they're relying on your information and they want to work with you, then you've opened you've opened a conversation, you've opened a window for them to actually connect with you. And that way, those 25 views become 25 people that get on a call with you. And out of them, you now decide how you do your closing. But the goal is the activity rate, the click rates, the funnel rating, the build up into that funnel is a really good way for you to see what these platforms do. Because with Taji AI, I'm still going to check and see what they do, but I'm not necessarily going to subscribe. I've subscribed to their email list. That was enticing, but now their LinkedIn is off. So it's like, we're having like mixed emotions here. So those are the kind of things I do when I go into a brand I'm not new to, because I want to feel it like somebody else would feel it, if that makes sense.
I love that Favor, because to be honest, this is something that you can have, on the side, but it does not ever replace, like you're saying, an actual person that knows what's going on. And I'm looking at the strategy or the pricing, and it doesn't even align with my strategy. So, for example, me, I'm not going to call myself a lazy CEO, but when it comes to content creation, I want to be as efficient as possible, right? And so my strategy, the way I've set up my content creation going forward, is to repurpose everything. So the reason why I wanted to do YouTube podcasting was because of the fact that if I'm going to create videos on YouTube anyway, I might as well do a video recording myself doing a podcast and then take those podcasts, repurpose it on those podcast platforms, and of course take that video, chop it up into small little snippets, viral snippets, and make those shorts, make those Instagram, content, TikTok, etc. And and then that way, I'm maybe filming 5 times a week or 5 long sessions or something like that, and I have content every single day for the next month, right? The next month or more even. And so I don't know what you think about that, but when you only have 6 maximum shorts per year, who's going to just do 6 shorts a year? That doesn't even make any sense, right? Especially if you're doing long form content, you can easily chop that up into small little shorts. And so that, does it make sense? You get what I mean? So sometimes I look at these plans, and because people who created them are not in the industry, they're just doing technology, they don't realize that these plans are kind of, they don't make sense for a lot of creators.
That's true. And I feel like sometimes when people are marketing, you can say anything in marketing. Anything goes in marketing. But I think where the true value of the marketing responds is when you feel comfortable walking in and walking out and walking back in. Because we have two types of visitors on websites. We have new visitors and we have returning visitors. So when you're a new visitor, it's like walking into a mall, walking into a store. Hey, welcome. Good morning. Like, they'll welcome you. They'll feel like, wow, thank you for coming. Like that good morning means a lot because you probably didn't hear good morning when you left the house, so you never know. So that is a gesture. That is a way of giving people that, hey, we see you. Thank you. Right? You don't have to say anything, but we appreciate you. That's already a gesture. That's a brand. That's an experience. That's PR. That's brand. So when you now walk in, did you get everything you're looking for today? Oh, thank you so much for being with us. Here you go. Have a nice day. God bless you. Come back again. You feel like, wow, my pleasure. These guys actually care. Then you come back again, right? What on your website, what on your podcast, what on YouTube, what on your show do you have that people will feel exactly that same way if they walked into your show and walked out? That's the feeling of that success, because success is a feeling of I've failed many times. I've failed, done this, I've done that, but I'm successful because I've come out of my failure. When you fail forward, you learn more. That's why when you think about all these successful millionaires, billionaires, successful people, we are all successful in our own right because we're here, we're alive. That's a great thing, right? And when you're successful, you're grateful, right? And when you're grateful, you're thankful. And when you're thankful, there's a response system involved, right? You have a heart, a gesture, you have an emotion, you have a feeling, you have that. It's like that effect that you get, when you look at all the emotions going at the same time. It's because you feel like, wow, somebody actually listened to this podcast. Somebody actually connected with me. Hey, where do you listen to podcasts? YouTube. All right, here you go. Where do you listen to YouTube podcasts? Pandora. Here you go. Apple. Here you go. Or just send them straight to your website, and then there they go, because now you've given them a place to go. But sometimes we wonder, where are we going? Or what are we saying to people who are actually looking for a solution? There's so much information out there that if everybody stops doing content today, we'll be okay. We'll be just fine, because there's so much out there that we can still consume that we haven't yet consumed. But the problem is there's too much consumption. Like there's only so much food you can eat. At some point it turns to gluttony, and that's not good, right? So you have to eat with precision, see it from a different place. And that plate now starts to spread out even further because you can actually serve different people. Because the more you give, the more you receive. That's why I'm on Clubhouse. I love being on Clubhouse, listening. I love speaking. I love connecting, collaborating, because you never know what you say could impact someone's life just because you thought about it. And if it's a good feeling, share it. If it's a bad feeling, don't do it, because the repercussions are worse. So you think about the reaction before your action, and then you evaluate your next action so that you can impact the next person. So those are things you have to look at when you're looking at YouTube, because when people are finding you on YouTube, it's not because your video is popular, it's not because your video is viral, it's because you're addressing a question that people need an answer to. And that question is in form of a title tag. And if that title tag has your keyword in it and the URL is connected to it and you have a website built through it, then you have dominion and you have domain authority through the web. And that's where leverage comes in. That's where equity comes in. So you're not just on YouTube because, oh, I want to be on YouTube. I've always wanted to be on YouTube. I am on YouTube, but I'm not using YouTube to push people through a funnel. I'm there to make sure that I'm available if they need access to information that they can see. That's the main truth. So that's really where podcasting and growth comes in. So Maxine, yeah, thanks for bringing that to Agile AI, because we kind of went a little bit deep into it. So what are your thoughts on that? We'll come to you, Niles, after.
Oh, sorry. I am so sorry. I was multitasking, Favor. I did miss your question.
No, no, you're fine. It wasn't a direct question. It was more so like based on what we've just, discussed, what we've talked about, seeing it from your angle now. Where do you see it going? Because before you came in the room, you had a perception, you had a thought, you had a process. Now, what are you thinking after this room?
After this room, I didn't really have a process. I'm going to be honest. I just had somewhat of a process about repurposing. I always want to repurpose everything, but I really don't know. I really don't know. I can't say I have a solid answer on how I want to go about podcasting because I'm still setting up my studio with the backdrop and all the lighting, the look that I want. I feel like that matters a lot to my brand, right? How I come across on that, and I don't know. Like I said, I'm here to listen. I would love to hear what you think. Can I ask you, for a brand new or a person who has been on YouTube but hasn't really produced anything, like it's existing but not really anything, for someone like that I'm going to say, I'll just talk about me. I'm a person who I've always been shy, but I've been, throughout my life, I've been thrown into the forefront or thrown into leadership and things like that. And I realized eventually that I am a leader and that I need to just embrace that and kind of not suffer through, but kind of get into the uncomfortable and continue. And so I'm in that place now where I just wanted to have a freelancing thing. During COVID, I closed my shop up and said, I'm going, leaning back on my degrees and doing this thing. And I was happy behind the scenes, just coding people's websites and whatever else, or managing their websites. And then now, the type of coverage that I got in Canada, I didn't expect, um, when I was just kind of working with Black businesses and fighting for them basically, and for funding and access and letting people know that Black entrepreneurs are not a cookie cutter from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. We look different in different regions. We have different needs, and from doing that, it's like one day I woke up and realized that I suddenly became this advocate for Black entrepreneurs across Canada, and everyone wanted my face and media and stuff. And so I've been really trying to figure out how to just step into it. I'll step in, dip my toes in, then I'll just run back behind the scenes. And I think now with my business, um, where it is now, I have to do this. I really have to do this. So I think I have to get out of my own way, first of all, Favor, and see what's in front of me. And I've created plans for over a year, for the whole year, content strategy, titles, you name it. And then I didn't put it out. And I think there's something deeper with that. But right now I'm sitting at, I feel like a precipice where I'm just like, okay. This is my crossroads. Am I going to stay in the comfortable, or am I going to get uncomfortable? And I think podcasting can be easier when no one sees your face. I used to do radio. I had a radio show back in the 90s. I'm dating myself. In the 90s, early thousands, I had a little radio show as a teenager, and it was a big deal. But it was easier because I was shy back then, stuttered and all that stuff. But then I became this radio personality, and it was a different thing. But it was different because no one saw my face. I was this unknown voice, right? And so there's something different about being on YouTube where your face is there. You are out there in front of the world, and there's something about that kind of makes me shake a little in my boots because I've always been so shy. So I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Favor. With people like me, I know there's a lot of people that are business owners that know what they need to do, but that roadblock is there in their mind to really be vulnerable and step out. I really feel like these creators are so courageous to keep putting content out when at first there's crickets and then it builds and whatever, and you're just being totally vulnerable, not knowing who's going to agree with you, who's going to like you, and who's going to appreciate what you're doing, or who's going to even care. So anything to say? I would love to hear from anyone on the stage.
That's deep. That's deep. And I just want to welcome you now as Miss Andrea and John to the room. And I want to pass it to you, John, first, because, I want him to speak from experience too. And I see Miss Andrea as well. Now it's Liverpool fans are in the chat too. So before I even say anything, because I've been speaking, I want others to pour into you and also, connect with you as well. So if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Maxine, I came up when I heard the word radio. I'm in radio now. My show started as an audio only podcast. I've been in FM music jock for about 19 years. And in 2017, I started this podcast. I got recruited by radio. It's now syndicated on 116 affiliate stations across the United States. And we broadcast to about 44 million combined population. Then episodes go online as a podcast. So everything I do is for mass numbers. We've got as many consumers as possible. It's a little bit different from what Favorite talks about. But I do faceless. My face you rarely ever see posted on a photo. You almost never see on a video because in my situation, it's not needed. What's more important is my guest face. I want people, and coming from a radio space, you already understand this. Excuse me. People use theater of the mind, and they interpret what you look like based off their perception. They really focus and listen to what you have to say. So for me, it's far more effective than putting my face out in front. So if you're not comfortable putting your face on video, there's many other ways to do faceless videos and be ultra successful. I think that, and I'll say this, there right now about 17% of podcasts have a video component that goes with it, but almost every one of them will tell you their audio only shows are far more successful and they generate far more revenue. So it's six of one, half dozen the other. If it's needed for your business, then by all means, get that persona. You got a job to do. Do your job. Be on the video. If it's not needed for your business, then there's no reason to put yourself in there. If that helps.
You have no idea how much it did, John. Thank you so much. I'm gonna actually look you up. I saw the title of your podcast. Yeah, that's the thing is I probably said two peeps all through high school, but I took home the highest grades, but I didn't say much. But a lot of people in my high school didn't know that I was the one who was Maximums from CJAM 91.5, rapping with all these Detroit underground artists and freestyling and all this stuff. Like I feel like I can fully just be myself authentically when I'm not in front of a camera. There's something about a camera, even by myself. I'll look at the camera, and as I'm filming, I start sweating just because the camera's on me. And so I feel like the production process for me is so strenuous to do a video podcast as opposed to an audio podcast because I have a stuttering problem which is why I typically never did talk. I can hide it now because I've learned to. I'm a professional, right? So I can work around all of that. But my takes in the editing process for a video, ah, it just feels like I'm pulling teeth trying to edit everything, and I'm self-conscious, so I want to make sure, everything's perfect. And that is why I shied away from it. However, like you said, um, if it's needed for your business, you need to do it. And it is needed for my business. It really is, because right now I am the brand, and people come to my business because of who I am. I have been able to um, I think I've ridden on that horse a little too long, where I was blessed to have government and whoever like seeking me out and giving me contracts where I didn't have to build my online presence. I just did it for everyone else and focused my time on that. And now I'm at a place where it's like, you need to be leading by example and being out there. And so it's definitely needed for my business to be out there consistently putting out content. So I will suck it up and do it. But I appreciate what you said, John, about the fact that audio podcasts typically perform better than video. I find that interesting. But my idea about it was that, why not video, have it on video, so that I can also capitalize on maybe the monetization with YouTube as well from the same efforts of putting out a podcast. So, but the reason why I haven't put a audio podcast out is because of the video stopping me, and that's not an excuse, right? That's like paralysis, where I could have just been doing audio for now until I was comfortable with YouTube videos. So that's something that I'm thinking about now after our conversation, that I should just ease myself in by just doing the audio, speaking authentically, and then when I feel like, okay, I've now graduated to a place where I can do this, then go to the video and be consistently in front of the video. And of course, to be honest, there's more behind the scenes. The idea of, I'm structuring my company and expanding it right now. I need more employees so that I can live in front of a camera. So that's also another issue. But thank you so much, John. I appreciate your time.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much. I just knew it would be so beneficial for you. So I appreciate you, John, for that. Thank you so much again, for that. And welcome, Dr. Fashion. Bridget, I see y'all there in the audience. Thanks for being here. I also see Kenna as well. You've just joined Clubhouse. So I just wanted to give you a party hat. Welcome to the room. Thank you for being here. If you guys have a question, please come up. Please come up. Please come up. There's a lot of knowledge here. There's a lot of people here. We're going to answer good questions. We're going to connect. And we're going to make sure that you get, responded to and you get all those good stuff. So Miss Andrea just got a call from work because I was coming right to you, but that's good. Let me know when you're back as well. Before I even say what I wanted to say to you, Maxine, I wanted to still pass it on to somebody else I wanted to speak. Nows. And then, oh yeah, Liverpool's finest wanted to say something before you waved your
Yeah,
hand.
yeah,
Yes, so
thank
please go
you.
ahead, and then Niles follow after. I'll just be listening.
Okay. So a little bit about me. I've made it quite known that I've wanted to go into podcasting, but it's not. I've kind of put it on the back burner for a little bit, partly because obviously out of laziness and also that fear as well, because it's something that I've not done before. And obviously I've had previous so I do a lot of blogging, and I do a lot of blogging and everything like that. So I blog quite a lot in my free time. And that's something that I do as well. So with Maxine, I kind of resonated with a lot of what she actually said, because for the first reason, I'm quite shy myself. um Public speaking is not something that I like to do as well. And but when I've been put into certain situations, I've noticed that I have that trait to actually kind of lead people and things like that. And obviously I've worked in various sales where I've had to go into that leadership position and try and get sales so I can make money and things like that. And even with my experience with social audio, for example, my journey on Clubhouse has been quite an interesting one for somebody who started off as just a predominantly a listener. And I tended to shy away from speaking on stages because I didn't really feel that I had much to offer to people and everything like that. But eventually I kind of got onto I got speaking on Clubhouse stage, and I said to myself, let me try something new, and I stepped out of my shell. So it's very important to try and do something new and step out of your shell, because you don't know what you're actually kind of missing out on, to be honest, and it's something that you might find that you're very, very good at. And I feel for myself, people always tell me I'm a very confident speaker, and even though I feel like I'm shy and everything like that, and I can't get my point across and everything like that, people have told me, oh, you're a very confident speaker, and it's something that I really, really do enjoy, and that I have been known, a little old me who, like, 2 years ago, I did 2 years ago, like, I used to speak on, like, stages with, like, maybe um like 300 people in the room, and I was like thinking, about 5 years ago I would have literally just completely laughed in your face and said, no, that wouldn't have been me whatsoever. But it's all just about really trying something new and seeing if it's going to work. And of course, at the beginning it's not always going to go your way, but also trying to persevere with that and say, you know what, acknowledge your efforts, etc, 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 and just try and do better. And it's also important to try and surround yourself with people who are familiar with the field that you're trying to venture into, so that you know that you have the knowledge and say, oh, you can do this better, to try and optimize what you're trying to achieve and things like that. And another thing, when it comes to podcasting as well, is I guess I'm not very good on camera and things like that. So one, being photogenic, and also like the fact that there is a lot of pressure to try and make sure that everything is perfect and everything like that. And I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, and sometimes life doesn't always work like that. Sometimes it's very important. Sometimes things aren't going to be perfect, but just to actually just go along with it and make sure that you know what, and try and get better at the end of the day, because things will get better, no the longer you stick with it, and that. So it's very important to always try and do something new. And I'm preaching to myself, to be honest, but I'm always trying something completely new and everything like that. And that's how you learn a lot more about yourself, is by trying something new and not sticking to things that you're familiar with. And we're human beings, we don't like to do things that are completely different. We don't like changes or anything like that. We like to stick within our comfort zone, but it's very important to try and step out of our comfort zone once in a while to learn something completely new about ourselves. But I'll land it right there. Thank you, Favour.
I appreciate that, Liverpool's finest. I'm sure you've touched a lot of people too, just from what you've said. There's so much, so much that if you just put out and just do it scared, do it bold, do it confidently, just do it well, do it to your best capacity. Your next podcast shouldn't be your best podcast. Your later podcast should be better than your first podcast. So when the more you do it, the better you get, and the better you get, the more people appreciate your resilience, and that's what people want to see, because they can't see themselves in that, so they're seeing themselves through you. And if you're that light that needs to shine through yourself to them, then using the platform will be a great resource for them too. So thank you so much for that. Niles, passing it to you. Niles might be away from his phone too. Miss Andrea, you back? She's probably having her phone call too. Okay, that was deep. Thank you so much for that. Please let me know, wave when you guys are back as well. Lisa, welcome to the room. I see you're in Tokyo, in Japan. We'd love to hear about your business. Welcome.
Hello, my darling. Yeah, I'm in Tokyo, Japan. I'm a Brit, but I'm in Japan at the moment. I just wanted to say I was cooking at the time because we've got a different time zone, and I just wanted to say to the speaker who was saying that, she felt uncomfortable being on, you know, before about feeling uncomfortable, and she'd been on the radio before, but ended up and doing a lot of stuff, but was talking about podcasts and the fact that she didn't feel comfortable showing her face for YouTube. But the irony is, I also struggle with that, but also a lot of the podcasts that I listen to, you don't even need not podcasts, sorry, the YouTubes that I listen YouTubes. Oh my god, it sounds so old. The YouTubes, the YouTube that I YouTube that I subscribe to, 50% a visual and 50% you don't see the person at all. So I think it doesn't necessarily have to be this thing where you have to see the person. Sometimes a lot of people just show a slideshow of like if they're talking about, I don't know, kittens or something, I don't know, they'll show a slideshow rather than talking to the camera, because for some people that's uncomfortable. Although I have to admit, I feel more comfortable watching someone talking to the camera than when it's a bit of a slideshow. But I still subscribe to, the slideshow-esque style. So I just wanted to say to her that she doesn't have to worry about, even showing her face, because not every channel actually shows their face. And I've been listening to some for years that didn't show their face. I think there's a lady on here called on Clubhouse in general called Pink Pill, and I would listen to her content, and she didn't show her face for a while, I think. So it doesn't have to necessarily be, your face doesn't necessarily have to be shown. That's it.
I appreciate that. Yeah, go ahead, Maxine.
No, I just wanted to say I appreciate you coming up to even just express that. Yeah, don't get me wrong, I'm on camera all the time, but it's that feeling, that gut wrenching feeling, right? However, if it's a conversational podcast where I have a guest, then I don't really care because I'm focused on the guest. And but yeah, you've given me a lot to think about on how I want to structure it. Do I want to have interviews, bringing experts on more regularly, or do I want to? I was thinking more of a solo podcast because I have a lot to say and a lot of knowledge to share, and I feel like I want to use that as an opportunity to just share it. Um, so there's so many different formats that I can use that you've got me thinking. So thank you, Lisa, and thank you, John, and Favor. I yeah, I'm just very grateful to actually have jumped in this room today.
I'm happy. I'm excited. I even want to shout out to Dr. Fashion too, because she was like, "Get on YouTube, Favor," and I was like, "Yeah, I can't upload all these 300 plus episodes, but somehow I'm gonna come there." And then when she told me about it, I said, "Okay, let me jump in," and I connected my podcast to, the YouTube RSS feed, and I saw it initially, but I didn't know that they had a third option, which was to now plug in your RSS feed. And you know just what you said, Maxine, is big. And Lisa as well, John, Liverpool's finest too. When you look at the grand finale, or you look at the grandiose picture, or you look at the macro image, or when you look at that unimaginable thing that you can see but you can't really fathom, but it's possible, then you take away the fear of doubt and the fear of flight, because it's either fear or flight, right? But the opposite of fear is faith. So if you just use that mustard seed, put it in there, you know, drop it in the ocean, and put a message in the bottle, let somebody see it, you're opening opportunities that you couldn't have had if you didn't try. Because with YouTube, most people, I'm sure some huge channels are making thousands of dollars a month because they're just playing rain sounds. They're just playing lo-fi music. They're just giving you quotes, maybe motivational, collections, right? All those things, and if you want to go deep into YouTube, reach out to Dr. Fashion as well. She's great with that. And if you have any questions specifically for YouTube, she's the one that's going to help you there. So when you look at the big picture on how you create success on YouTube, it's beyond the scope of showing up with a video. Because imagine if your RSS feed turns into an MP3 file and it also turns into an MP4 file. Like we're talking extensions now. So let me go a little deeper. Imagine, because when I talked about RSS feed, it's syndication, right? So if you have a video, for example, and you upload your video, you have a YouTube video, or you have a video from anywhere and you're putting it on your podcast, somebody on Spotify can watch that podcast episode, right? And that episode is in form of an MP4 file, right? That's a video file. Somebody on Apple Podcasts cannot watch that video. So that's an MP3 file. And then somebody on YouTube cannot watch that video because it wasn't uploaded directly to YouTube as a video. So it's now, I would say, transcribed or transmitted, or I can say it's been translated to audio, but it's still in form of an MP4 video file on YouTube. So what you've done is you've broken down one file into three parts or into two parts through three different platforms using a funnel four-way strategy: information, navigation, commercial, transaction. So if you take away that fear and just post, publish, you submit, then you're going to see beyond that. And then where you get to enjoy YouTube is in the analytics, because I've been talking about zero party data, first party data, second party data, and third party data. I'm going to bring that up again because why I'm so specific on this is because I did a search online, and I usually use Google Trends, but I go deeper into Google Trends within a different platform, and I get to actually see what people are talking about. So right now in 2024, in the marketing world, in the world, I'm not talking about just the US, in the world, because I scope from the world all the way down to a zip code. So when it comes to marketing, competition, commercial, residential, all the nines, right? The whole nine, really. When I look across the board for marketing, the first thing that comes to people's minds is first party data. Why? Because people are noticing, and I've just changed the link so you guys can read that article. I wrote this article on Saturday. It's an 8-minute read. So like save it, check it out. Even the image that you see there, there's a website called ideogram, ideogram.ai. It's a free tool. It's like Instagram but for AI. So imagine somebody you follow on Instagram, but they produce AI images on Instagram, but it's on a different platform. That's ideogram.ai. So you can prompt images. I'm literally giving you guys candy right now. So you can go there, prompt any image, get beautiful pictures, get very calculated AI driven pictures that actually make sense, that actually writes. When you use AI and it misses a letter, or it skips a letter, it skips a phrase, this can give you that accuracy that you're looking for, and you can save it. It's like Unsplash but with AI driven images. You can make it public or private. It's up to you. So all the images you see on this article, I prompted them. Even the picture you see with the guy pointing a light and everything, I prompted that. So you can go imagine, like, you can go crazy. The reason why is because I'm incorporating marketing right now. The next thing after first party data is AI advertising. People want to know how to do AI advertising. So when they say I can show you better than I can tell you, that's what I'm doing with the article. I'm not saying, hey, look at this AI picture and stare at it for 5 seconds. No, it's there. So when people watch, they know it's AI. They're like, oh, this is so cool. So there's AI advertising involved. I'm giving you information about first party data, and then I'm deepening your knowledge by actually introducing you to other parties that you probably didn't know of, because there's zero party data, there's first party data, there's second party data, and there's third party data. Second party data is YouTube, because you don't own youtube.com, but you own your data on youtube.com. But if somebody subscribes to your YouTube channel, YouTube has that information, that contact. You don't. So how do you tap into the market share of youtube.com with your website? In your YouTube description, when you tell them on video, hey guys, click the link below, subscribe, actually subscribe to my email list, because that way they know they're not just subscribing on YouTube, they're subscribing beyond YouTube. So when you're deepening your relationship with your subscribers, whether they're podcast subscribers, YouTube subscribers, email subscribers, they're people first. So these people need to feel like you're actually connecting with them. And how do you connect with them? By responding to questions they're asking. So zero party data is like, I meet you at a date or I meet you at an event. There's no other party involved. It's just me and you. It's just you and me. We exchange contacts. That's zero party data. First party data is the same thing, but it's through a medium, right? And that medium is a website. Hey, sign up to get 25% off, just like we did today, with the AI platform. And that's first party data. Now they have my email, right? They didn't ask me to give it to them. I went to their website to give it to them. So the giving is on your side of the court, right? So if the ball's in your court, then you can bounce it however long you want to bounce it before you shoot it, right? So when you're creating those experiences, you decide. So you still have the power to choose, right? But that information, when it's gone through that channel, it's now information they have until you unsubscribe, right? So that's first party data. Second party data is everything we have online in Web 2, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, Pinterest. All these platforms, great. They're good for data, but they're second party data tools. We don't own those tools. Pinterest does, YouTube does, LinkedIn does. So when you see your analytics on LinkedIn, you see your impressions on Instagram, you see your Facebook impressions, you see your TikTok audience, all those things you're looking at are all second party data. Your podcast analytics from whatever platform you're hosting from, second party data. Because when you see you have 100 Spotify followers, you have 10,000 Spotify followers, Spotify has that information. Do you have 10,000 followers following your email list with their contact information? That's the real question. Because these platforms are free. They know why it's free, because they know that data is the new oil, right? Data is dollars, data is currency. So if Netflix has your email, that's because you're connected, right? Because you're going to make a subscription. So what are you doing with your business with emails that is also attributing to your success? If you're using LinkedIn newsletters, send them to your email list on top of that, because they're going to like, follow, subscribe, comment, connect on LinkedIn. Who's getting that watch time? LinkedIn, not you. It's great to be on those platforms, but it's greater to send them somewhere that they can connect with you at a deeper level outside. It's like meeting somebody outside. You want to connect with them. You like the person, from zero party data all the way to the point where you actually want to connect to them even deeper outside where the noise is, right? YouTube is noisy. Spotify is quiet. Why do I say that? Because everybody's on YouTube and you can succeed on YouTube because it's the second most searched platform after Google, but it's also quiet on Spotify because people can easily listen. I think Maxine was asking about, podcasting and YouTube and audio and sponsorships. The top three things that people do when they're listening to your podcast, according to angami.com, ANGHAIMI.com slash advertise. When you scroll down, you're going to see those data points. They have billions of data points because you work with data, right? So the top three, they're in the 30% and above. The rest of them are there. There are many other things too. But the top three, when people are listening to your podcast, YouTube, show, whatever it is that they have to pay attention to based on where they live or how they move or where they go, boils down to these top three. The first place is when they're getting ready for work, for school, for business, for anything. Even if it's work from home, they're getting ready, maybe taking a shower and they're listening, or they're, whatever, they're in the house, they're relaxing. That is one. And according to an iHeart, this is some, study they did last year when it came to like connecting with data points, share of voice, which is Alexa and all these things. I got to see that out of those data points, the one that really stood out the most to me are these two things. They said that there are more podcast listeners than Netflix subscribers, That was last year's data. And on top of that, when you're using Alexa or using Siri or using any, audio device, 60% of the time when people are using Alexa, they're alone because they would rather, the 40% is when they're with somebody, right? So if they're alone and they're asking Alexa a question, hey, tell me about a podcast I can listen to about mental health, because we're in a mental health awareness month and we're talking about these, and then give me the top episode or give me a playlist of episodes. If your playlist is on YouTube as a podcast, if your blog has some type of referencing to your podcast with context, connecting to the content that is being searched, then you become the refiner, you become the finder, you become this person that they look for, because now they can see your podcast, they can see your title, they can see you're the author, they can hear your voice, they can actually watch your video if you have one, they can subscribe to your email list, you're a real person, they can connect with you in a real-time event, they can come to Clubhouse, they can feel you. When that starts to happen, it no longer becomes AI, it becomes connections. So those things have to play a big role, into your data analysis. So that's where second party data is. And then third party data, lastly, is when you look at like Wikipedia or you look at third party news or Crunchbase, you go to other sites, Google, reviews. When you go to those, that's off page SEO, but it's still third party data. If you're listed on Wikipedia, if you're listed in an article on Forbes, what magazines, that's third party data because it's more of like a backlink because it's backlinking data back to you. So you don't own their website, you don't own their page, but you own the link that they plugged from their page to your page. That's a backlink. So it's backing up to you, meaning that somebody wrote about you somewhere and the link pointed back to you from their property. So when you invest in intellectual property, meaning that you're investing in your website, meaning you have your own email list, it means you have connections with people that anytime you write a podcast, you show up online, you connect with people, there's an email sent. Emails are for triggers. Emails are for notifications. Emails are for push notifications. Emails are for justifications. Emails are for verifications, right? So when you're using email in your business, you're building relationships in return, right? That's why when you launch a YouTube video, you publish it, you get an email. When you publish a LinkedIn newsletter, you get an email. So why is it when you podcast something, when you push it on a podcast, you don't get an email? Why is that the opposite? So when you start looking at the trend, you start to realize there's a reason why these things are happening. YouTube is sending an email because in their server, they've put you as a YouTube channel subscriber. So they're sending the email for you. That's why it's free, right? But when you want to send an email to the same person that's on your YouTube channel, how are you going to connect with them if they've never subscribed to your podcast? Through email. So we need to get outside of this idea of forever social media, right? It's great, but the greater impact is when you take that information, 5% from LinkedIn, 10% from YouTube, 2% from Facebook, 30% from Pinterest, whatever the number is, and you calculate that and you respond back to your email list and look at your email list and you're like, yeah, these people came from somewhere. They came from LinkedIn, they came from Google, they came from YouTube, they came from somewhere, and they're also going somewhere. Sometimes people don't even know where to go. So create for impact. Don't just create because you have content. Create to impact so that the impact you create outlives your time. So with that said, I want to come to you, Edward. Thanks for being here. Question, contribution, suggestion, we'd love to hear from you. Edward going once. Okay, no problem. Thank you for that feedback. Minnie, I know we kicked off the room on a high on a high note. Want to come back to you. Is there anything you'd like to say? Anything you'd like to contribute? I don't know if you're still available to speak. Yeah, she might be busy because it was.
I'm here. No, no, no. I'm here. So, I've been listening in as I was making breakfast and doing all those things, and I am really, I was really excited because, like you said, on YouTube you have to block out the noise, right? And that's one thing that um I am learning is that um which is part of the reason why I'm waiting, not waiting, but I haven't actually started my YouTube channel yet, is because um I'm still trying to figure out what my lane's gonna be, because YouTube is great, but um if you don't block out the noise or the naysayers or the people who are saying, hey, well, you shouldn't do a YouTube channel, you should do it on another, yeah. And so that is something that I'm trying to figure out where my lane is. But one of the things that I love about YouTube is its accessibility, right? Like I have a lot of friends who have podcasts and or YouTube channels, and what I'm discovering is that it's a very accessible way to start a YouTube channel, or to get into the podcast space from a accessibility standpoint. I've been testing a lot of the features that YouTube offers, and what I'm noticing is that it's something that, hold on, I had a ping. It's something that a lot of people kind of sleep on, right? Like they don't think about YouTube as being a place to get your start in podcasting, but I personally think that it's a place that people should, especially entrepreneurs, um, and people who are in startups, should actually take a look at, because I mean, for one, it doesn't cost a whole lot, and for two, I mean, how could you not? I mean, you can link it to Google Podcast. Like it has so many advantages, and so yeah, that's what I was wanted to share.
Thank you, Minnie. Yeah, there's so many advantages to YouTube as a podcast. You know, just being there and showing up online easily also put you within that three pack. And you know, I was mentioning even earlier too about where people listen to your podcast mostly. You know, the first place is when they're getting ready. The second place is when they're driving, or let's say when they're, you know, on a journey, they're on a road trip, or they're stuck in traffic and they're trying to just get their mind off the traffic. Your podcast is more of a release. So imagine if your podcast has music. That's, we also create original music because I'm a producer too. So that's where music also comes into the play, because that also allows you to connect with them deeper. So if you're on YouTube and you have music with your podcast, that also creates a brand exposure for you too, somehow. You know, it doesn't have to be, it doesn't always have to be, but if you're in an industry that matches that, then yes, there's some industries that don't need music and they still make major impact. So it's not about the music, it's about the people that you're connecting with, right? So those are the things that you have to look at too. And then the third place they listen to podcasts is when they're working out. So when they're on the treadmill, when they're, you know, at the gym, when they're chilling, you know, it's something. One other place I've noticed just by doing advertising for, you know, podcasts on news sites, people read the news when they're at the park. So if people are listening to your podcast while they're in the park, they're there for 30 minutes, for an hour. You have a podcast series that's 30 minutes each episode. You can literally enjoy that time that you're spending. So the maximum success is not just at each episode. You know, you have to think about those things and create. So definitely, Maxine, I want to hear from you about starting your podcast, because that was the next thing I was even kind of come to. You know, if you're in the room put in there if you're podcast ready, if you want to start a podcast, or if you have anything to do with podcasts, put start podcast, monetize podcast, or scale podcast. Put that in the chat, and I'm passing to you, Maxine. If that's what you're thinking about doing, either of those three, put it in the chat, and I want to see it. There's a reason why I'm asking this question. Go ahead, Maxine.
I have a meeting 2 minutes ago, so I have to go.
Yes.
But yes, I have to jump off. But I would say I am going to start my podcast. I will start it this month. I'm saying it out there. I'm making myself accountable. I will have a podcast out this month, and the goal is to bring leads through it. That's really what the goal is. I can care less to be an influencer. If I have 1,000 avid fans that are buying, and purchasing from me and engaging with my services, that's all I care. I don't really care to be have something big. Um, and also, what the most important thing I care is that I can add value. Like I really would love to add value to people's businesses, and for them to be seeking that. That would just make me so joyful. so that's all I have to add, really.
Thank you, Maxine. No, I appreciate that. Yes, and I'll reach out to you after this so that we can get your podcast out this month. This month. It might even be this week, if we're really going there. So we have to make it happen. But thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing your time. Yes, I like action driven. Yeah, those are some of the things I've introduced into my business. So we'll talk about this. Thanks, Maxine. Appreciate you for being
Thank
here.
you.
You're welcome.
Okay,
Yeah,
bye.
bye. The idea of creating podcasts and building podcasts is a big thing, right? And those are some things I've also introduced to, even for my business. If you look at this link above, you only realize that the only minutes you have there is about 45 minutes that's free. That's 15 minutes is our call. If you want to get onto SEO, audit your website, I'll audit your website before we even get on the call. So we can maximize the conversation we're having in the first 10 minutes and then use the last 5 minutes to decide. And then if you need to take some time, you have a 7-day window to make that decision. If not, then we proceed, we move on. Because a lot of people I've noticed, just because I've been in business for over a decade and a year now, and the podcast is going to be 5 years now. I've seen so much, next week, Monday. I've seen so much in time I've given. Like I've calculated how much time I've given on Zoom, close to about 400 hours last year. I'm actually even lowballing myself because it's way more than that. If I calculate each 24-hour day cycle within a 52-week calendar year, it's a lot of hours you can contribute to people. And yes, it's great. I love helping people, but it gets to a point where people need to help themselves. And you want to help people at a large scale so that the impact lasts long. Because if I help one person and the other person is failing, then that's a disservice to me because I feel like I should be helping both people and they can be able to help 4 other people or 2 other people or 8 other people. Because if I'm the only one that knows about this, then what benefit it is to humanity? Like I want to learn from you too, right? I don't want to be the smartest person in the room. I'm just contributing what I know, then what you know affects what we know, and then we impact each other by what they should know. So that's where that impact comes from. And then the other 30 minutes is, and if you want to be on the podcast, we can talk about it and we can get you on the show. And that's what we've been doing consistently. It came from, reaching out to people, hey, do you want to be on my podcast? Do you want to be on my podcast? And from that, it turned to, hey, we have somebody to have on your show. So the goal is to use YouTube as a channel of success so that when you're growing as a business, your business is gaining momentum because you're creating awareness for your brand. There's a difference between being on a platform and being impactful on a platform because everybody can be on a platform. We can all be on Facebook, we can all be on Instagram, we can all be on TikTok. But the impact comes from the niche factor, right? What are you being on the platform for that makes you the person to go to, right? This year, this end of year, I'm just documenting this so that you guys can know this because I'll be bringing this to you. I've talked about it in hindsight, And I broke it down. And if you listen to one of the replays where I broke down a $750 ad spend on Pinterest, I broke it down in the room. It was at night. So check the replays in my profile. You'll see it there. And I broke down the budget and I said, this is how much I spent in June. This is how much I spent in July. This is what I got. This is the data I found, because I realized on my search first party data, a lot of people want to learn how to use Pinterest marketing because Google is expensive. This is what I'm hearing from corporations, because I talk with private companies, corporations, enterprises. I do research, small businesses. So we see the whole picture across the board. Large companies, they want to cut their costs. That's why they're spending money on spaces in their offices to create podcast spaces or co-working, partnerships to have those opportunities to do PR, to do podcasting, right? Because they want to focus on impact, right? Everybody can write an article. Sometimes you may not even need to write an article anymore because your article is speaking like you. That's where AI comes in. So you're spending less time doing the mundane things, the things that require effort, require labor intensive work, and then you substitute that with smart work where you now work intelligently and at a faster pace. So you're creating your space within a place of success that people can find you consistently showing up all the time. So your podcast is the anchor to your business, because companies that are spending money on those platforms are looking for people like you. Big companies, large companies are looking for your podcast to advertise with you because they know that your audience, if you have the data right, because it's not all, right? If you have the data right and you're doing it correctly, then you can actually contribute to the business's success because of the brands that you talk about. So if you're on video, you can use that. Let's say you don't like to be on video, you can just use video only and say, okay, this, let me give you an example. This just came to mind. You can have a partnership deal with a brand and exclusively show your ads or show their ads on Spotify. And then they can only watch those ads on Spotify through your podcast. And then they can pay for your podcast show to actually advertise that on Spotify Studio, for example. There's a methodology to that, right? There's a way you can actually build that up. So that way, if you're exclusively on Spotify, then there's a playlist that's going along with it, right? If there's music along with it, if it's holiday season, those are some things that you can put into practice, right? So those podcasting tips allows you to now tiptoe into their audience segments. When you think about Alexa, you start going back to those things I was saying earlier: Amazon, Etsy, Pinterest, Walmart, TikTok. These are platforms that people are using every day. So when you start noticing that people are connecting with you on those places, then you now start to really specify and go deeper into it. So people are looking for Pinterest because people want to use Pinterest as a business, but they don't know how to. And I've been getting signals. People want to learn Pinterest content strategy. So I'm coming back. In 2021, I was doing a lot of Pinterest on Clubhouse. This year, I've been doing a lot of podcasts on Clubhouse. Last year, I was doing a lot of SEO on Clubhouse. So I might be bringing Pinterest back towards the end of this year because it's a holiday season. And if you're not on Pinterest as a business, as a podcast, you're missing out on a lot, a lot, a lot, a lot. Because imagine if you post on Instagram, it ends up on Pinterest automatically. You post on your podcast, it ends up on YouTube automatically. Like you're just pushing buttons at this point. You're not even stressing. You're pushing buttons like, oh, what does this button do? Boom, 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 boom. Before you know it, you're on 30 platforms at the same time with the same episode. And because you've been able to distribute, you know, podcasting is not just about posting, it's about the distribution. That's where a lot of people have problems with it. Podcasting is the distribution because they don't know who's listening and they don't know how to receive that feedback because they're not positioned to find that analytical study or do that study at that capacity. So if you're creating connections, you have to think about it deeper. And Lisa, you're asking about the the RSS feed. Okay, so I'm going to break this down. because RSS feeding it can get very complicated, but I'm going to make it simple. And if it's not simple after I explain this, please tell me, because I want to make sure that it's understood. So I'm going to try my best. Okay. So RSS stands for really simple syndication. In other words, one to many. Now, there's something called an RSS feed, and inside that feed, it's a link. Anytime you have an RSS feed, it's a link, because sometimes we don't even click on that link. When you click on your RSS feed link, let's say you copy that link and you paste it into the browser, what shows up on that page is the brain of your podcast. In other words, the episodes you've released, the titles you've given, the descriptive text you've placed. Is it bold? Is it italics? Is it underlined? Is it highlighted? Is it, hyperlinked? All that is called HTML, hypertext markup language. That's what we all use, right? When it comes to coding, because when you see like P, H1, H2, all those things you see on Microsoft Word, when you choose a title, a heading, a subheading, all those things are parameters. They're all signals because it's structures like a house. There's a doorway, there's a backyard, there's a window, there's a room, there's a closet, there's a kitchen, there's a place for everything. So that's the same thing with a podcast, RSS feed. So everything is housed into that place as a resourceful link that people can access openly. It's open information, it's public information. So that RSS feed can be fed into third party websites. That's where that third party data is coming from. So you're using first party data to impact or to integrate with third party data. In other words, you're taking your community, your podcast, your link, your intellectual property, because your RSS feed is connected to your email. So you still have ownership rights. So even though you're sending it there, you're not really losing it there. You're just adding it or enhancing it there. So that's why when you take it to YouTube, YouTube now has that information. So the analytics you get is now second party data, but you're on a third party platform. So I don't want to confuse it, but when you create those experiences and you put your RSS feed into those platforms, that's the information it's giving. So if you have 100 episodes, you're going to have 100 blocks of text that have 100 different topics expressing in 100 different descriptions. So that's how you're able to build it within the RSS feed. Now, that RSS feed is HTML, but it's actually XML. In other words, it's expandable markup language. In other words, it's rich text. And what is rich text? And they say that on Pinterest as well. Rich text is, I'm going to say it twice, it's enriched. In other words, it's like a sweetener, right? It's been enhanced, it's been modified, it's been given some type of context to it, right? So that information that you're receiving within that RSS feed, within that XML file, is information for the bots. It's information for, the algorithm. Let's call it the algorithm, because everyone knows about the algorithm. It's for the algorithm to read, so that the algorithm matches what you have to what the next person has. So if you have more than what they have, then you get first value, you get first dibs, you get first place, because you have more context to give the person, because Google loves to give information to the person with the most experience or with the most value added information. Google loves to thrive on experiences. The more experiences you give Google, the more you're able to connect. There are 8.5 billion searches a day on Google. And out of those 8.5 billion searches a day on Google, which is more than the number of people we have in the world, which is 8 billion, right? 15% of those searches a day on Google are new. And if you write one article a day, one podcast a day, you're contributing to 14% of new content that Google actually actualizes for your business, for your product, for your link, because you have something called a URL, a unique, uniform resource locator. So your resource locator is resource that has material. When you think about resource, anytime you hear resource, it's material. That material could be physical, it could be digital, it could be how you want it, it could be tangible, it could be sustainable. It's up to you, right? So the physical, the intentional practice of you having something that people can see that is resourceful is a file that you can actually send. If I give you a file, if I give you a, like, let's actually make this really happen, because I really want to give you like a visual, you know, a visual aid to this, because I love to give analogies. Imagine if your podcast was in form of a folder. Let's say I come with a folder and it has 10 pages in that folder. And then your competitor comes with 100 pages in that folder. And then somebody else comes out with 1,000 pages in that folder. And then you put the 10 folder, the 10 page folder, the 100-page folder, and the 1,000-page folder on the table. Which one is going to look more? Like, which one's going to look heavier? Which one's going to have more weight? Which one's going to have more context? I'm probably going to pick the one that has 1,000, because that looks like it's the same topic, it's the same book, it's the same story, but this book has more pages than the first book. So I'll go with the last book, because that book will give me more time to dig in. Because once I'm done digging into the first book, I need more information, and I can't have that from the first one. So when you look at RSS feeding as feeding into the file, like adding files to your folder, because we look at folders and files on our computers like they're just folders and files, but they're actually folders and files. If you have this 300 episodes, 200 episodes, those are folders. If you put $200 on your table that in ones, the number is going to go up, right? So if you put ones on top of each other to 200, but you put that in your digital currency, you may not see that 200 with your eyes, with your pupils, right? With your retina activation system, right? But you can see that because you know what that looks like. So when you start to actualize your podcast and you're like, okay, I'm on YouTube, I'm on Apple, just think about the number of episodes you're on times the number of files you're on. In other words, times the number of links you're on, times the number of platforms you're on. So if you're on, let's say you have one episode, that episode is on 25 platforms. That's 25 to 1. Second episode, 25 to 1. That's 50. Third episode, 25 to 1. Fourth episode, 25 to 1. Before you know it, you have 100 links with 4 episodes, because you're on 25 platforms producing multiple links at the same time. So you see where I'm going with this compounding interest? It's not just about running a podcast or pushing it on YouTube. YouTube is one of the channels. It's not the only channel, but it is a channel that you need to be on. Somehow, some way, you got to be there. Because if you're not there, then someone else is there, your competitor. So it may sound like it's a lot going on, but it's the truth, because you have to think about your podcast for growth. It's called maximum success, not minimum success or mediocre success. It's maximum. Maximum meaning you're on the platform that actually shows maximum traffic, maximum attention. If I go to YouTube today, if I go to Google tomorrow, I've gone there at some point. I may not have found what I'm looking for, but I was on their website. What does that mean to youtube.com? It means watch time. Even if you watched it for 5 seconds, that means a lot to youtube.com, because that 5 seconds is going to average the median value over the month based on the content that people are seeing. So when you look at your YouTube account and you see recommended for you based on this channel, look at Netflix, based on what you watch, here are other movies to watch. All that is search based. It's SEO. It's not magic. It's real, because it's you searching for things that your audience is responding to based on where you find things connectively. So when you're connecting the dots with your podcast is not just for success on YouTube. It's not just for success on Apple. It's not just for success on iHeart. You can be on SiriusXM, Pandora. You can be all of those places. You can be on radio. It's great. That's where you need to be. But don't stop there, because that is called second party data. You can see that information. You can see where people are connecting with you. It's great to look at it from your analytics dashboard, whether you're on Buzzsprout, Libsyn, Spotify for podcasters, Acast, wherever you are, right? There are even bigger platforms that you can be on with podcasting. But wherever you are, you're operating with second party data. So if somebody is subscribing to your podcast on Apple or subscribing to your podcast on iHeart or subscribing to your podcast on YouTube, great. Who has that information? YouTube, not you. YouTube does. You have the email notification, but they have the contact. Where would you rather be? The one receiving the notification about the follower, or you want to be the one receiving the contact information you can refer to 10 years from now, 20 years from now? So the reason why all these big companies are winning is because they have data leverage. Forbes, Facebook, you have to sign in with your email. Clubhouse, you have to sign in with your email. That's first party data for them. So what's your first party data for your business? Don't just have a podcast out there because you have a podcast. Great, have a podcast, but have a podcast that has contacts. Subscribers, yes. Followers, yes. Fans, yes. Super fans, yes. Bring all of them. We love that because it's community. We love to build. Not everyone's going to work with you, but you have to impact people. And those lives you're impacting take time to grow, right? You may not see the bigger picture now, but one day you will. And the good thing with podcasting that I've seen, because it's going to be 5 years for me next week, Monday, what I've seen, thinking about SEO in itself, right, is for every one episode that you publish that goes out to maximum RSS publications, you have a lifespan of 24 months for your podcast to grow. And it can still grow beyond those 24 months if you place it on YouTube, on Pinterest, on Google, on your website, on, good platforms that actually have evergreen accessibility. Because if you look at your top 10 episodes right now, you may be surprised or you may not be surprised, but majority of your episodes, if not half, or at least 30%, are episodes you did at least 2 years ago, because those episodes haven't matured yet. The ones you're doing now probably haven't matured yet. Some of them may even, uptake all the way up there, right? So it's based on how you position yourself, where you position yourself, and who you position yourself for. So when you have content, you have contacts, you have connections, you're getting that maximum success because you're podcasting with confidence. The reason why a lot of people stop podcasting or stop, dropping episodes is because they feel like no one's listening. Yet there's a whole number of people who have not discovered you, actually found you, connected with you. That they actually met you because they actually want to connect with you at a large level, right? And that large level is a multi-level approach, right? Because that multi-level approach is where you are creating that maximum success. Like we're thinking about the Olympics, right? There's first place, there's second place, there's third place. When you're running that 100-meter sprint, would you want to be first, second, or third? Even if it's by a millisecond, you want to be first because you want to get that gold medal. You want to get to the top of the mountain. You want to get to the top of success. And then when you get there, you want to bring as much people as you can with you. That's why all these millionaires and billionaires, they have all the money in the world, but what gives them satisfaction is giving back. It's serving humanity. It's being a beacon of light. It's being a person of influence. It's being a legend. It's being a thought leader. That's the goal. It's not to have 500 episodes or to have 1,000 episodes. That's great. You can be the top percent in the world, but if you're not using it for the impact it brings, that actually gives you the influence to affect, impact, help someone see the light in a different way or to think in a different perspective, then you're missing the whole picture. Because I didn't start a podcast to just talk. I wanted to listen to other people and connect, right? There are 5 different ways of podcasting. You can either do solo, co host, interview, roundtable, Or you want to repurpose content like you can do with YouTube repurposing, right? Like theme pages, right? Now there's AI. You can have AI podcasts. It's crazy now. So you can do anything you want to do, monetize it however you want to. But the goal is to create that impact, because if you are helping somebody else see it from a different light, it's so impactful. I was on a radio show in Nigeria on a Wednesday, and I published it because we had it live on Facebook, and I repurposed it to the podcast. So if you see it there, I said you don't need a microphone to start a podcast. That's what caught everyone's attention, because they're like, so if you don't need a microphone, what do you need? I'm like, look at the word microphone. If you really look at the word microphone, it starts with your micro, yeah, small, but the root word is phone, right? So it's your phone. So if somebody can hear you from your phone and you have a voice memo on your phone, you can create a podcast from your phone, right? Of course, you have to invest in quality, you have to invest in sound, you have to invest in all these great things, right? But the goal is to send a message. If I want to send a message in a bottle, even if I'm using a feather pen to write that in ink, I know that one day I'm going to use a typewriter, one day I'm going to use an electronic mail to send that same message. But because I'm using the message in a bottle and this all I have, then I'm going to send that message anyway. And then one day I can graduate from that to the next thing. You don't graduate from baby class to PhD overnight, right? So you create that intention to grow, not wanting to get to the top of the mountain, but to learn from the process you went through to get to the mountain. So when you think about your business from a different light, from a different scope, then you're connecting with people at different points of view, which attributes to the success pattern of where your success graph could look like. Because you're no longer just looking at it from a mini view or from a view of, oh, okay, this is cool. Yeah, it's cool. But what's cooler is that you can actually show people what you did, and then you can tell them how they can do it differently. Because when I started my podcast, I actually left. I can't say I left, but I pivoted. That's the word I can use, from music, because I'm a musician first. I'm a drummer first. I play the drums. I'm self taught, and I play in the band. I play at church, and I play by observation. So I learned by observation. I taught myself how to play the drums by observation, and I've been playing for years now, right? So playing drums has allowed me to be very observant, because I watch the crowd, I watch the people stepping, two stepping. I'm like, okay, this beat is too slow. Like, I got to speed it up. Like, I can read the room through my fingers and through my legs, because I'm, hitting the bars and I'm, playing the drums. So from that little experience, in my little experience, that allows me to see things in different angles. Then I translate that to music. Then I said, okay, there's podcasts. I joined Clubhouse because I was already starting my podcast in 2019, August 12th, 2019. And I heard about, I was like, what, it would be really cool to have an alter ego. That was what I was thinking. I was like, where can I go in this world? This was 2019, before Clubhouse. I was like, where can I go that I can actually talk on a platform, live, but with audio, not Instagram live or YouTube live, but just a live platform. Then, Clubhouse came, and I joined November 2020. So from joining Clubhouse, because I wanted to expand my podcast, because I have a love for music and a love for sound, because I started playing the drums. If you look at the whole picture, if I missed a step in any of those creation phases, I may not have even been on Clubhouse. If, let's say, I didn't want to start a podcast and I kept dilly dallying, or I kept not doing it, I may not even be on Clubhouse today. Probably I might be joining as a first time Clubhouse member this year, just because I would have slowed down my steps. But I said, no, I have a feeling, I have this gut feeling that people need this information. Like, I'm on here for hours, not because I don't have anything else to do, but because I've been able to create time for things like this. because I've put it in a way that I know if I have these number of hours, I can connect, I can build with people, so I don't have to be on Zoom every day. I can be on Clubhouse for hours because we're connecting, because I know someone's going to listen to this in the future, and what I said a year from now, 2 years from now, will still benefit. It's like when you're investing for your children, investing in your future, investing in your business, you're investing for tomorrow. You're not just investing for yesterday or for today or for now. You're investing for tomorrow. So if that investment is sustainable, and that sustainability comes from your consistency, then your consistency has to produce quality over time, so you don't have to worry about the quality when you start. You can think about the quality, but work through the quality, build the quality. So your RSS feed starts from building context, because there's a lot of content marketing, but there's not a lot of context marketing. I always say content is king and context is queen. When logic and emotion make sense, then psychologically there's going to be a process that's going to actually benefit the two. That's why communication is big, right? So when you create those connections, you're building attention grabbers. Did you know? Question mark. That is a podcast episode you can have as a series, because you want people to know things, right? When you start up, when you run an ad, calling all entrepreneurs, right? If you're not an entrepreneur, you're going to swipe left, right? Because you know that that message was not for you. So those are some things that you have to think about when you're building your business from scratch. It's not about, yes, 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 we can have all the quality we need. But if you listen to your first episode and your 10th episode and your 50th episode and your 100th episode, and there's a change, it's much better than you starting perfect from the scratch. Like, what do you look back to? Look at your top videos, look at artists. They can give you all those things that can really give you value over time. So it's just a matter of processing and a matter of learning, and that can really build your attention over time. I wanted to come to you, Sean, and then I'll come back to you, Lisa, because I want to finish on the RSS feed. But Sean, thanks for joining today. How are you? Good morning.
I'm good. I'm on the web. I don't know if you can hear me well or not. I'm just testing this out. How do I
You
sound?
sound good.
Okay, this is good because I'm on my computer. I'm not using Club Deck because I hate it. I'm just on Safari. I'm in the room, and this is great. So aside from me coming up here and testing, one thing I discovered over time, and we're talking about marketing, and I talked to a lot of my clients about this, and I actually tested this out myself. Is I've become more self-aware, and then I went, okay, what happens? How am I getting things when I respond? And what I mean by that is, how do I respond to marketing? And it's taken me a while to kind of be self-aware and go, okay, well, I wake up in the morning, what do I do? Open the phone, I look at emails. Okay, email lists, cool. Then I go to LinkedIn. Okay, depending on the demo you're going for. Okay, LinkedIn. So I'm scrolling there. And then, well, I go to Instagram and I scroll through, but I'm just looking at stories. So I've been documenting what I do in the morning and how I respond to socials and how marketing works on me. And it's very fascinating. And I've been telling a lot of my clients, just do this for a couple weeks, and then you'll see what things work for someone who's like you. And if your audience is someone like you, kind of try those things out.
I love that. Trying, testing, we will never get the answer every time, but the more we keep trying, the closer we get to the answer. It's like, imagine listening to an album with a track list that only has your favorite hit and there are no other songs to support it. It may feel incomplete. So when you think about a body of work, you think about a masterpiece, you think about, Midas touch, you think about building relationships. The podcast really now makes a lot of sense when you actually think about where it's going and who's responding to it, as opposed to you just showing up on YouTube because you have a podcast show. And if you have keyword research done, then you're not going to miss. The reason why I'm having this episode, just to give you like a little backstory, guys, the reason why this episode or this room or this title of the room has this words podcasting with YouTube for maximum success is because I was on a flight a few weeks back, the one before I went, the last one, and I was flying to, where was this? Maryland. Yes. I was flying back to back to Houston. And I was reading a book. I spent 30 pages reading that book. That's what I'm telling you how much I spent as far as time. I spent 30 pages reading the book. And out of those 30 pages, I created a 52-week calendar year content structure for 2024, 2025. So the episode, the title that you see at the top of this room was already created when I was on the plane because I was thinking about topics that I'm going to be discussing for the new year, the new quarter. So everything you're seeing here is planned as far as structure. I just didn't think about a topic because I was doing research, I was reading the book, and I was like, this is what people need. That's why we're all here, right? And I've had this room open since 8:10 a.m. Central, and it's almost, getting to 2 hours, and that's the time I'm giving because I know people will listen to this, they'll replay, they'll connect, they'll learn, and it helps because there's so much that you can learn from this. But at the end of the day, the goal is who's going to apply it first. We all know how to run. When there's something happening, we're going to run. But if we're running with the intention to reach first place, then we're going to have to run strategically, right? Our body posture has to be different. Our thinking has to be different. We're not just going to run because somebody said run. We're going to run because we're running towards a goal. So that's where that impact is coming from, right? That's where people are connecting with you from. And it starts off with thinking about the success. Thinking about the success of your podcast is so big because when somebody thinks about the success, the next thing that starts to happen is where else is this person? Like the discovery starts to become even sweeter. Like if you meet somebody online, you connect with them, you see them on Instagram, naturally you're going to go to YouTube or LinkedIn or even Clubhouse, somewhere where you go frequently to go and see, are they also there so that I can also be there with them? Right? Because you want to feel connected, right? And that's what has made social audio so great. You might see someone that has 100,000 followers and you think you can never talk to them, but you come on Clubhouse and you're standing or sitting or in the room next to them. That's what social audio has come to. So we have to think about YouTube as a place for resource and not a place to port or a place to park or a place to just stay put or have a status quo. Because when you do your keyword research and you incorporate episode cover arts with your title tags, that's going to be a 1-2 punch. It's going to be a quick jab because if you use, and most people don't really do this, I did an episode on podcast cover art versus episode cover art, right? Those are two different placements, right? Because if you treat it like the way YouTube treats putting text graphics on your thumbnail and then putting it in the title tag, it's one and the same thing. It's kind of like the same difference, right? Because you're putting your link out there for people to see that this is the name of my podcast. If we're talking about this or that, the title would need to have that specific information. Why? Because if you look at the URL, the Uniform Resource Locator for Apple, and you share, let's say, your link with somebody on Apple, pay attention to the ID, pay attention to the numbers, right? Some people don't really see that. I go deeper into those layers, right? Just look at those numbers, those alphanumeric characters on the URL. You realize that is an encrypted data that iTunes or Apple has created for your podcast. But because iTunes works with metadata, just like if you go to your iTunes, app on your phone, or you go to your Apple Music, when you look at your library, there's metadata like the lyrics, the publisher, the author, the time, the song, the key. because I'm in music, so I know those things too, right? So it's the same thing, same difference. So when you look at Apple Podcasts and you have the name, your author is there, your socials are connected, you have the right feed. There's something called a cast feed validator, right? So that feed, that RSS feed, is going to be validated according to the standards, because there's a standard you have to reach. It's not just a podcast. There's a standard you have to reach, because if your standard is not the right standard for the podcast, they're not going to refer your podcast because you might be having the wrong thing, right? There's something called a cast feed validator. If you go to castfeedvalidator.com, that allows you to check the health of your podcast, because your podcast needs to be healthy. Sometimes we don't talk about that, but the health of your podcast is based on the conversation you have. Even the file size matters. The file size of your podcast cover art needs to be between a certain pixel range, because if it goes beyond it or below it, that's a red flag, and that also puts you off, because websites that are created with positioning have requirements. That's why when you do a LinkedIn banner or you do a YouTube thumbnail, there's specific, even Pinterest, there's specific pixels that you have to go with. So when you now have that image, it doesn't look stretched, it doesn't look scaled, it doesn't look static, it doesn't look pixelated. Those are things you have to think about. So when you have a podcast episode on YouTube, the YouTube episode or the YouTube link, right, will need to show the episode it's coming from. So if you don't change your podcast, if there's a section where it tells you to put an episode cover art, most times people just leave it blank. For what reason? I don't know. That's real estate right there. So if you're featuring your guest and that guest maybe wants to advertise, they can put their logo on there. They can put in a lot of stuff there because it's their show, it's their day, it's their episode, right? So you highlight all those things there. There are links. That's where SEO comes in. There are backlinks. If you're a guest on a podcast, don't just go on a podcast show and leave. Make sure that the links they're putting to that episode have your name on it, so that when somebody's searching for your name on podcast, they find your episode. Even if you're not the host, you can still be found through name search. So you have to think about these things long term. Don't just go on a show and just say, hey, we're on a show. Have your own deck. Make sure that it's positioned correctly. And those are the things that you can definitely see to maximize your success. So that's a long answer to your question, Lisa, about RSS feeds, but does it make sense now when it comes to validation and acceleration of your podcast show?
I really, really super appreciate that you went through all that because I was learning a lot and I was making notes. So I really appreciate that so much. I've actually been on a podcast before, so it's funny that you mentioned that. Um, Luckily, I don't know exactly how it worked, but because you put my full name, so if I Google myself, the podcast comes up. So she's clever in the fact that the person who does the podcast, she always puts the full name of the person in the title, if that makes sense, so that when you Google their name, one of the first things that come up is her podcast. Do you see what I mean? So she wouldn't be like, oh, a black Brit in Tokyo, and end of story. She put my name and then blah 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 blah. Does that make sense? So it just made me think about that when you were talking about the fact of going on someone's podcast and not really having any way to come back to you.
Yes, yes, that is so, so important. And I'd love to pass to Sean too, because Sean is great with this too. Please go ahead, John.
Well, Lisa, you sort of answered my question, but I'll bring this up anyway for the benefit of everyone else. If you are Googling yourself, whatever browser you're using, make sure it's in incognito mode because it will just pull up your cookies. And if you've been looking for yourself for a bunch, you'll be the top regardless. But you said you had a friend do it, so that's great. But if people are trying to see how do I actually coming up, obviously get someone else to do it for you, but then put your browser in incognito mode and then it'll bypass all that. And then there's some other browsers, I mean, you can use as well, but that's sort of a good way, an indicator. And Favor, thank you for that cast feed validator. I've learned so much and then I forget it all. So you like made me remember. I went there. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember using this a long time ago, but I'm gonna bookmark it now. And I checked all my stuff, and it's funny. The only thing popping up is my artwork's too big because I deliver everything 3,000 by 3,000, and it said everything was fine. But great tool, everybody, for just making sure things are working well with your RSS feed.
100%. Yes, Sean, it's so true because when your podcast is healthy, then you don't get those error messages, those dings, and those, feedback loops that are very annoying because you want to stay in the creative space and not in the worry space. So it's just a great place to check and see, like, are you all checked in? Is anything you need to check out? And then that way you can submit to Apple, listen notes, and you can have a great time with podcasting. It's really it's really the goal, that people want to connect with you on. And it's just a great place to be, podcasting. Why? Because that's where people connect. People connect on podcasts. People listen to you all over the world. Like, they might hear you for 5 minutes, and that alone has set their day on fire because now they're fired up for you. They're fired up to connect. They're fired up for all those things. So, it's really about connecting those dots and building it too. Nikki had a question. I want to address because she might come back because I want to answer that question. She asked about RSS and then she asked about Google Console and Analytics. Google Search Console and Analytics for your podcast is one of the most important things you could do for your business when it comes back to first party and second party data, right? Because Google Search Console gives you first party data. Why? Because when you connect your website to Google Search Console, it says connect your property. So when you're connecting your property, you're connecting your asset. You're connecting your income generating asset, which is your website, right? So when your website is created, your website starts to take form. Your website starts to build attention. Your website starts to show up on Google. Just like Sean said just now, when you search your name on incognito, like for me, I searched my name when he was speaking. I searched my name and I put podcast right next to it. When I look at the result on all, you can see Instagram, you can see Apple, you can see LinkedIn, you can see even the episodes. Like, I don't choose what episode shows up on Google. Google chooses what episode shows up on Google, right? All I'm doing is if I have 390 plus episodes, all 390 episodes can show up on Google search, but the ones that actually show up are the ones that people listen to the most. So it's like even a great way for you to know and do your own research on your own podcast to know what does Google suggest people listen to on your show, and then use that suggestion to now validate the information you're giving. Like for me, when I look through the whole list, people are really, pegged on listening to monetize your podcast with these three steps. That's like my top episode now. It's been charting. It's number 2 now. It's been charting since it came out, May 27, 2024. And it came from Clubhouse, right? I have a YouTube right there. It says 3 months ago. There's a YouTube video. There's a timestamp. It's 1 hour, 54 minutes, 25 seconds. And the first question I asked is, are you looking for new and improved ways to generate revenue for your podcast? Question mark. That is an inviting question. So YouTube is picking up this information for its own on the other podcasts too. Great Podcast Network. Shout out to Julie. On her show too, on her radio, it's monetize your podcast with these 3 steps, right? So that's on that URL. Then it shows me another one on Apple. Then it shows me on Threads, right? Then it shows me on Podchaser. Then it goes back to Clubhouse. So, and then I see LinkedIn and so on and so forth. And now I even have an episode I did 3 years ago. I can see an episode I did 3 years ago, right? On somebody else's Facebook, right? So, point is, if you want your podcast to outlive the number of years, You want to place your podcast on YouTube, on Google, and most importantly, on your website. Because if I didn't have a website for this podcast, all this information I'm telling you will be vanity metrics because I don't have access to it. I don't have ownership rights, and I don't have a say. And that's not good because you need to have a say about your show because you have to control your audience based on how you serve them and how they receive the service. So when you have that website as the anchor and you show up online and you can see you're on this show, you're on that show, you put your name there, it's a great place to be. So those are some things to look at and to look out for when you're thinking about your business long term. So that was really great. You don't guess it. Welcome to Room. We'd love to hear from you. What are you thinking about YouTube, podcasts, view time, just the whole nine.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. Favor is always a pleasure. It's always very enlightening being in your room because there's a lot to learn, there's a lot to digest. I am just so grateful that I have your support in establishing my podcast. There's two of them. So the first one is the altruistic scribe, how can a language we understand, which lends to my medical background and my medical experience and what my business is about, which is health education and advocacy. And the other one is Abegvex, which is basically very African, very black, very Afrocentric, very much everyday life and things of that nature. As uncomfortable as I was, and Favor, you worked me through all of this. As uncomfortable as I was, getting myself in that space. For anybody who's thinking of getting in that space, just get your feet wet. Just do it. I'm still not comfortable with it. I know I'm struggling a bit, and I'm thankful for your Favor. But it's such a rewarding experience to be rewarded for your passion or something that you care about. So I don't have much to say in the sense of the SEO aspect of it and the back end stuff because I am learning that as I go. My experiences in healthcare, so to have a business is a steep learning curve, and I'm just so grateful that I have your support and the support of everybody who are active listeners to what I have going. The momentum is very, very important. Just those small goals. If you're like me, you think of the lofty goals, the big things, you want to do it big, you want to, pull out the bazooka and just blast everybody away. It doesn't always have to be that way. It doesn't always have to be the hour long, 2 hour long, or 3 hour long episodes. Like Favor told me, small bites, even if it's like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, just talk about something that you're passionate about. The time will flow, it will go, and you're going to make an impact. You're going to be consistent. Um, you're going to see the result. Every good thing takes time, and for somebody who likes to see results quickly, I think it's just my career. When you're taking care of somebody or you're implementing a treatment, you want to see that treatment take effect in half an hour to an hour. Talking about medication administration, so it almost feels like everything in life has to kind of like have that short lifespan. But I have learned to be patient. I've learned to be patient with myself. I've learned to be patient with the process. I've learned to be patient with whatever is going on. So you have a good group of people here, like I am doing today. Listen and learning. Soak it all in. You can all do this, and it's very rewarding. That's what I have to offer. Favor. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. You gave me a thought process, and I was like, I'm going to give somebody a challenge. And if whoever does this, I owe you dinner because I feel like this is something that would really help you grow. And I don't know who's going to do this, but try this out. This is a challenge I'm giving you now. I thought about this as Eden Guess was speaking. If you spend, because we're talking about time, right? We have 24 hours in a day. So if you can take 52 minutes out of your 24 hours and record 1 minute an episode for 52 minutes, right? You have to do your keyword research. I'm not talking about just random talk. Like, you have to have done your keyword research. You have to know the questions people are asking, do your research on Answer the Public, Answer Socrates, go to platforms, Google, do your research and go to Reddit, see what people are asking, then come back and answer those questions in 52 minutes. And each of those minutes contributes to one episode. And then you take that one episode and you schedule it a week in advance. So 52 minutes, 52 episodes, 52 weeks. If anybody does that, come to me and we can talk. So we can look at that, because if you can really do that, I would really want to challenge you to do that. You have 24 hours in a day. That's a lot of time. A lot of time. And sometimes we don't even remember what we said 2 years ago. But if imagine if it was on a podcast, it was so good, you caught it, now someone's listening to it and it's changing their lives. That's a big win for you, right? 10 years later, people are still watching your YouTube show. They're still listening to your podcast, because the lifespan of a podcast is 2 years, it's 24 months. So in 2026, people are benefiting from what you're benefiting right now in 2024. So when you think about that, 52 weeks, 52 episodes, 52 minutes, once a week, if you can do that, I owe you dinner. And I'm very serious, because I want you to invest in your time wisely. If I'm doing 5 years next week, I look back, I'm like, this can be done. And you can do it too. I want to see you grow. I just don't want to be on Clubhouse just talking. I want to see you grow. That's why I'm spending time here. Because when we get on Zoom, it's only 15 minutes long. That's the difference now, because I want to give value. So welcome, Chioma, welcome, Crystal, and welcome, Edward. Go ahead, Miss Andrea, you're back. We'd love to hear from you. Then we'll come to
Sorry
Chioma
about
and
that. I'm
Crystal.
just going to ask you. I was writing a
Yeah.
note, even though I haven't started the podcast. So, how many minutes is each episode? 52 minutes or 1 minute?
So it's 1 minute per
Mm-hmm.
per episode.
A minute per episode. Okay.
So 52 episodes
Mm-hmm.
and 52 minutes.
Okay. Okay.
That's possible?
Not for me. I'm recuperating.
No problem. But yes, please.
Not yet, but soon. Yeah, I'm trying to recuperate slowly. Um as I'm at work full time, but I think I need to as I'm recuperating, I'm setting myself a target to actually write again on my WordPress, because the last time I wrote was like, is it 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. So yeah, this week I will spend writing two, so that I can have one already posted for this week and one ready for next week. So that's what I will focus on this week actually.
I love that. And even because you're doing blogs too, you can translate that to 52 blogs.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Those are 52 YouTube videos in audio form.
52 blogs through.
Mm-hmm. Because it's one
Oh,
minute a read.
yeah. Maybe I should calculate how many words, what's the word count, or yeah, what's the word count to kind of for someone to read in a minute, basically. How many words do I need to have? But then again, I don't want to do that, because I feel like my um first opening story about myself actually on my WordPress, I got good feedback. So it wasn't too long, but it was correctly detailed as per the feedback actually. So yeah, actually, so it's a good shout. I'm gonna write that down.
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah, and I guess you think, Sean.
So Ms, I see myself in you. I can hear myself talk when you talk. And that is the perfectionist, and it must be just so in us, and that's not a bad thing. But the thing that I learned from Favor through this process is that when you're busy trying to perfect it, when you're busy trying to make it just so, it must be this. Oh, how many word count? How long can somebody read a 30 word count? How about 90? But am I introducing myself? Am I making sense? Is everybody, all these things are things that actually get in our way just because we want it to be so perfect. There's somebody looking for that imperfection. There's somebody looking for just a muscle of what you have to offer in any form, whether it be a blog, whether it be, recording for 1 minute. I know you're recuperating. You joined this room, I'm sure, maybe on your phone or a laptop. It's just basically talking, even if it means just basically having a recording or keeping a verbal diary of some sort about the process that you're going through now, healing, recuperating, whatever it is. I don't know the story, but there's somebody that will benefit from it that you may not think would benefit from it. So what if somebody went through the same thing you're going through right now, and they kept that, voice recording of how they felt, how the process was? It would have given you an insight as into what to expect, right? So, overthinking it is something that I do, I have done, and I'm very grateful for Favor's support and telling me, oh, you're great at what you do. Stop overthinking it. Stop trying to make it perfect. So, if I could offer anything, just go for it. You just don't know who is looking for that unfiltered, um, not perfect content.
Yeah, I hear you, sis. No, I definitely am a perfectionist. However, I think, oh yeah, and my story is that I finished cancer treatment end of May, got an eye beat breast cancer. So end of May this year, actually, with I finished cancer treatment. So, but however, why I'm recuperating is because throughout last year, as you can imagine, going through such an intense, toxic fire of treatment that felt like it was never going to end, and you feel like you're going to die, you can't make it through. But the type of person I was, although it was painful and although I felt like giving up, I was constantly busy and I was always fighting something. If it wasn't something to do with my house, if it wasn't something to do with work or something, I was constantly fighting. And my best friend was also constantly making me go out so that um I can still have in her thought process, so that I can have normality in terms of life, that I'm not hiding away. However, I've been doing that all year round, and from last week I said, okay, I've been out, I've been trying to, I've been asked to speak, be a co-host at some cancer events as well. I'm from London, and also I've given my testimony at least 3 times now. And I'm not going to lie, I just feel tired. And I do still experience fatigue, especially that work now is full time. Um, so that's why I'm like, okay, I need to recuperate in the weekend. But with this, me recuperating this week and these couple of weeks, also I said to myself, I need to write. But I'm not going to lie and say that at the back of my mind, I don't actually know how to deliver the next writing. And I don't know how much exposure and vulnerability to show in the next piece, if that makes sense. Although it is already on my Instagram, but I know that I could have probably written something last week, but I've kind of probably procrastinated and just put it at the back burner and be like, okay, I'll do it when I'm actually recuperating. But that's the reason why as well. I want to recuperate to actually focus focus on this one thing at a time, focus on this and schedule it and actually do it. um and I think I'm just that person. I need to like schedule things. I write things down. I write things down more now due to the medication that I am on. Um, So because I tend to forget, I'm forgetting things, and I believe it's probably the medication as well. So I just write a lot of things down. So as this is kind of my new normal, writing things down, giving myself reminders, I feel like, yeah, I need to incorporate my writing time whilst I'm actually going to recuperate these couple of weeks, well, couple of weekends of August. But no, I totally agree with you, and I totally hear you as well. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much, Miss Andrea. Appreciate you. You know, the love is real. We're here to help. We're here to connect. We're here to serve. That's why we're here. And the Clubhouse is great. You know, we're so far away from each other, but we're so connected right now. So thank you so, so much. And, you know, anything you need, please let us know. You know, we're always here. We're not too far as well. Sean, I know you wanted to say something. Please go ahead, and then I'll come to you, Choma, you know, to hear from you, then come to you, Crystal.
Thanks, Favor. Yeah, just quickly, two things. Uh, there's a reason, I'm assuming, Favor's talking about 1 minute, because how long are reels? How long are those YouTube reels? How long is this Instagram stuff? 1 minute. And it is statistically proven. I have clients on YouTube, and they're doing 1 minute reels, and those are blowing up. The full podcasts aren't, but it's a discovery mechanism. And I have them switching and using YouTube sort of a search engine to point people to the actual audio podcast. But we're going to be talking about that in the Podcast Pros Room later tonight. But the other thing I wanted to mention is the power of intention. And I don't mean manifesting things, although that's true as well, but the intention. Why are you doing your podcast? And we all know, you know, me coming from this broadcasting background, people can hear you smile, and people can hear your intention in your podcast through your voice. You could have the artwork down, you have the audio quality is great, which I'm an advocate of. But if you have a boring podcast, it's still boring. But if you have a podcast that is based on a sales funnel and you're an expert and it becomes a lecture and it's a commercial and it's an infomercial, people hear that intention and they'll get turned off very quickly. But if your intention is to have a conversation, if your intention is to discover new information and pull people along for the ride, this room is a perfect example of just that, where people have been here for a while, they're coming in, they're coming out. But a lot of people are just here to listen to this conversation because the intent of Favor and everyone else here is to share, not to sell. And if your podcast has the intention of conversation and possibly to entertain, people will hear that. And a lot of people pod fade, or they just stop doing their podcast because they'll come to me and they say, okay, I want to set this up. I go, okay, so what's the reason for doing your podcast? Well, I want 1 million downloads. I want to monetize. I want to make $100,000 a year, and I want to win awards. And then I go, well, that's really cool. Let me know when you achieve all that, but I can't help you with any of that. And the reason I say that is because I know exactly what's going to happen. They're going to put tons of energy into marketing, into social media, into all this other stuff. And the actual content of the podcast is going to fall short. They'll just chat GPT it. They'll get somebody on and they'll just have some questions. They'll just ask them questions. They'll chop everything up. It'll probably look great, but there won't be any warmth to it. There won't be any engagement to it. So that's just a danger I see all the time. And I hope people don't replicate that, because a lot of people are trying to do that. And at the end of the day, I'll wrap up here, Favor. At the end of the day, I welcome people to do everything I just said not to do, because then they're going to go away and then there's more room for the rest of us.
Mm, I hope you guys caught that. That's a good one. Thank you, Sean. It's so true. The podcast industry is so unsaturated that you could be the voice of your industry without even trying if you do it correctly. But most people are winging it. And that's what I was doing before I figured it out. But I don't want you to wing it because we're here now. There's so much you can learn by just being on a podcast, just showing up. I've heard stories of people starting businesses by listening to podcast shows. You know, people have changed their life by listening to podcast shows. You know, it's so much. Yes, Sean, there's so much you can do.
Oh, just quickly, I started my business, my company, AR Media, because of Clubhouse. I just wanted to put that out there. I've been coming on here and trying to give people good information about their audio quality, and it just blossomed into a company I created because so many people were asking me to do it. And now we've been going 3.5 years doing post-production for radio and podcast and helping people do well. And again, I'm not saying that to be an ad, low key, but I'm just saying that what you said, Favor, is because of Clubhouse, I created a business for 3 years. I have 10 employees now, and we're just helping people, and that just came from here, just wanting to give right information and helping people, and it got so much that people were like, "Hey, can you do this? Can you do this?" I went, "Okay, I got to do this formally. I got to make a company." And then thankfully we got employees, and it's growing because of the intention behind it. And people ask me, "How are you so successful?" I just partnered with another podcast company here in Canada, and now we're the biggest one in the country. And I don't do any advertising, and people are amazed. And I said, "Well, it's word of mouth, but we also partner with our clients, meaning we want them to get better, and that looks good on us. So when you are wanting to help people get better, we do it without any expectation of return." But I think we've all heard that cliche, but it's so true. As the rising tide lifts all boats up, right? So as far as the podcasting industry, I noticed at the beginning it was very welcoming, it was very helpful, and it still is. But then there's this sort of overarching dark cloud overhead of monetization of capitalism that's starting to inject itself. And I love the fact that all the indie podcasters are fighting back with that. Keep your audience small and loyal, because the people who want to 10x things, who think of it as a business, at some point it implodes on itself. And the beauty and the attraction of podcasting, the independence of it, is still going to keep it around. So when you are starting your podcast and you want to get listeners, focus on 100 loyal listeners. And think about it, even if you're getting 20 people per episode, there's 20 people in your living room that are sitting there and want to hear what you have to say. So start small and keep it manageable.
I love that. Start small, keep it manageable, scale. Don't think about monetization because it will come. And the people is where the monetization comes from. But if you don't have people coming, then how do you monetize? So start off with people and then profit follows. They say profit first, but it's really people first because the profit comes from the people. And if there are no people, there's no profit. So just look at the 101 formula. So thank you, Sean, so much for that. Chioma, welcome to the room. Good morning. We'd love to hear from you. What are your thoughts? I know you're thinking podcast too. So what's going down?
Good afternoon. Looks like it's coming up on 12 o'clock here at Eastern Standard Time. So, good afternoon to everybody. I haven't even really been able to listen in the way that I desire to because I just been moving around, cooking and trying to get ready for work. So, I'm in a place now where I can listen. I don't know if you're wrapping up the room or what, but I just wasn't in a place, but I did want to come into support.
No, thank you. Thank you so much. We've been here since what time? We've been here since 8:10, so 9:10 your time, Eastern. So we're gonna be here for the next possibly 15 more minutes because I've covered a lot. And I think the reason why I'm doing these long rooms intentionally, especially this week, yeah, this week, is because I am one celebrating the 5 years, of podcasting by spending time in real time, whether it's over an hour or less. At some point, I'm going to spend some time to just give back and connect. Because when we get to business, when we start doing work, clientele business, that time is cut short. It's only 15 minutes on a Zoom call, but you're almost 3 hours with me on Clubhouse. That's the access I want to give, because anyone who's going to get on that call, they're serious, they're ready to invest, they're ready to spend, they're ready to spend time, money, energy, but also invest in that to the point where if they spend 3 months doing the right thing, they don't have to do it again for the next 3 years, because they've put in effort and they've actually planted good soil on good ground, good seed, good ground, good establishment. So that's why I'm spending these hours here, because you can talk to me, you can connect, you can ask me questions. But when you get on that phone call, that Zoom call, things switch up, because now time is being counted, and that's where the value is appreciated. So I'm here talking about YouTube. This will go on YouTube, this will go on podcast. People are listening to it as I'm speaking to you now. Yeah, as I'm speaking to you now, we're running ads on my podcast throughout the whole month, and the graph is just pointing upwards now, because we're running ads to news sites, like to dictionaries, to Forbes, CNN, weather.com. We're just splashing it out there. And the episode I'm putting out there is the one on SEO, the future of marketing, and supercharging your marketing with first party data. Reason why is because I did a study, and I'm not just spending or running a random ad. I'm actually doing a case study, because I use a website that allows me to find out what's going on with the trends in the world. And the number one trending marketing problem is people need help with first party data protection. So I did an episode on Clubhouse, talked about it for 30 minutes, and I've now pointed it back to Apple, Spotify, the rest, everywhere, because we're on 25 plus platforms. And now I now supercharged it with running ads to news sites. So I'm running it throughout US, Canada, and the UK, but that spills over to other countries from what we've seen, because people are traveling, people are flying in and out of the city, so it's a lot going on. So right now, people are listening to that episode for only 60 seconds, for a minute. And then from there, they decide, okay, let me subscribe to the show, let me subscribe to a podcast. So my website is just going crazy, because I'm here talking to you for 3 hours, while in the background there's an advertisement going on throughout the whole day, throughout the whole week, throughout the whole month for this month, just to let people know about the podcast. Because what I realize is when people listen to a podcast episode and they realize that they've missed out on so much, there's that FOMO. Now they're like, oh man, where have I been? Now they start binging on your podcast, going to the first episode, going to episodes they like, they subscribe to your show. It happens. I wake up in the morning, somebody from the Netherlands has subscribed to my podcast, somebody from New Zealand has subscribed to a podcast. It just happens. I'm not spending money to find them, they're finding me. So you just put yourself out there to be found. So when they find you, there's something to connect with. It's not just putting out content because of content's sake. I can be here for hours, but on the back end, I'm getting data, I'm getting responses, I'm getting leads, I'm getting connections. We're working with clients. I have a team working in the background. So I don't have to be constantly on my business, because my business is running without me being there. That's before last year, you wouldn't catch me doing 3 hours on Clubhouse, because I'm spending 3 hours on Zoom with people. And that's what I had to switch up, because I can't spend an hour with somebody every week. And yet there are millions of people who need help. And I can still help them at a scale and still help this person that needs help within that hour simultaneously. So I had to make sure I can divide my time and be smart about it, so I can help a lot of people at the same time without helping one person at a time, because that's more time that's being spent, and we don't have time to spend. We don't even have enough time. So the time we have, let's use it to our best ability. So that's the mindset I'm with right now. So at some point, I might not do consultation calls. I'm getting there, but I'm using this year and next year to, really give people that time, because there's so much content out there that you can learn from me without even being connected to me directly, because this information is accessible for you consistently. So that's why I'm pouring into the web like this. So thank you, Chimo, for being here. Crystal, we'd love to hear from you. Talk about your show, because you said you don't have a video podcast, but you can be on YouTube without being on video. So we'd love to hear about your topic, and I like the concept. So let's talk about it.
Good morning, y'all. My name is Crystal Santeria. I am the host of the CS Cafe podcast, um, mixing a little poetry and storytelling so we can seduce your mind. So this podcast is poetry based. It started out as storytelling, but then I got laryngitis. So long story short, I had to scrape the whole audiobook format of it. So I went straight to poetry, and I'm an award-winning poet, so it kind of fit right in. I'm going on 2 years of our podcast, and I love it. It's also on YouTube, and it's on all podcast directories that you can find. So it's been an adventure. Um, Being able to put current events into my work, being able to use my degree in um, psychology and therapy and putting that into my work. I don't want to be monotone with one topic, because the whole show is about poetry in itself, in and of itself. So you'll get any topic, whether it's, police brutality, whether it's sex trafficking, whether it's erotic, whether it's school shooting, whether it's fun, whether it's sad, grief, whatever you can think of. Like, I do it all.
I love that. I love that I think the way you did your podcast, or the way you have your show, is kind of like how I have mine. As you were speaking, I was thinking like I would put my podcast like a Target or a Trader Joe's, where it's like you can find everything you're looking for, within its capacity, because there's a lot to offer and it's under one brand name. Because sometimes with podcasts, we want to just focus on one thing, which is great. But if we can have the umbrella of things that we can actually turn into playlists, into seasons, into episodes, into series, into bonuses, into trailers, into sponsors, like we can cover so many areas without having to be on a linear scale. So when you were saying that, Crystal, it got me thinking like, yeah, it's good to have all those things, because sometimes your episodes may serve one community and other episodes may serve another community. And simultaneously, you're growing a compounded interest for your brand. We love our favorite singers, our favorite athletes, our favorite celebrities, our favorite, idols, our favorite whoever, right? if if you're following after somebody, or you want to be like someone, like if you want to be like Christ, if you want to be like your favorite mentor, you want to be like somebody that you want to emulate or show, so that your children can emulate you, because that's the light they're seeing through, then how you position yourself online also shows the brand that you have and how you stand for things. So using your podcast is so great. You can turn it into radio, because I remember last year when it was Mother's Day, and there was a company, they reached out to me. They were doing something in New York. They were having a walk, a protest walk, gun violence against, young, mothers, and gun violence, just trying to eradicate that from, the system, trying to, preach peace and, society and all that good stuff. We had them on the podcast, and it was, positioned out there. So that whole day, people were able to listen to it, and that impacted them at that time. So when you can go back into a podcast or go back to a show, it's like telling a story. Like you can remember, oh yeah, in 2020, we talked about this, we talked about that. Because I remember even in 2020, I had episodes about traveling. How do you travel during the pandemic? And we had experts to talk about it. it helps them then. People can still listen to it now. So no episode, no story, no person, and no message is irrelevant, because all information pieces are proportional to the success of your show, because each of those elements contributed to the success of that listen score. If someone listens to 25%, 10%, 1%, 50%, 99%, even if it's 150%, they've played it over and over again. At the end of the day, the goal is to make sure that whoever is listening to that episode is learning from it, and they're learning at a scale, because that scale is wide. Like, this room has been open for almost 3 hours, right? But a lot has been said. And if somebody sits down, takes notes, applies, point, target, shoot, score, goal, and then they go, and now they're now ready to do it again. Now they've mastered the concept. When you're in school, you're going to graduate because you're going to master a concept. You're going to, go to the next step so you can actually have a skill set that allows you to get income, right? So when you're doing your podcast and you're doing those sprints, those 1 minute sprints, you're actually even educating yourself. You're practicing, right? The Olympics is every 4 years, but every other 4 years, these athletes are working hard. You don't see them on TV until they show up online, right? But you don't see the hard work that they're doing in the background. It's like an iceberg. You don't see what the iceberg looks like from the bottom, but from the top, you can tell that it's standing on its feet, right? It's standing heavy. So if your podcast has to stand heavy, if your podcast has to have that depth of field, then the field that you're watering has to have substance, and that substance has to show authority through content. And that content comes through your episodes, which have keywords. And those keywords are tracking through data based on your uniform resource locator, which is your URL. So if your one URL is on all podcast platforms times the number of episodes, that increases your number of backlinks, that increases your number of episode scores, that increases the number of you being listened to everywhere. And the more places you are, the better, right? Imagine if you had Walmart, Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts, wherever you like to go to, have your coffee, right? And you realize that this branch doesn't have your type of coffee. You have to drive another 15 minutes to get that type of coffee. It's the same business, different franchise, but you can't get that exact flavor you're looking for. That's going to disrupt your time by 15 minutes, right? So imagine if your podcast episode was everywhere. Good Pods, yes. Pandora, yes. YouTube, yes. Apple, yes. Spotify, yes. Everywhere you go, if your podcast is searched for, they're not like, man, you're not on this directory. It's like Yellow Pages. If you're not on the Yellow Pages, you can't be seen, right? That was then. This is now. So if somebody searches for you on a podcast station that they use and you're not there, and now you have to kind of force them to find you on another platform to listen to you, the chances of them doing that are slim. So you're already missing out on the potential. But if you're on YouTube, that's already one win. If you're on Apple, then you know that they use iPhones, right? You start to get deeper into understanding, okay, I have a lot of subscribers on Apple. That means I have a lot of iPhone listeners. Then that means if I'm running ads, my iPhone ads have to run within a specific picture scale, pixelated in a way that the pixels actually match. So if I'm running an ad on Pinterest or Facebook or LinkedIn, and I know they're using an iPhone, I need to know if they're using an iPhone 14, 15, 13, 12, and what is the median size. So that if somebody sees that on an iPhone 8, they can still get the same experience as somebody on an iPhone 15. So those things matter big time, because when you think about compressing your images, naming your images, the file names is not 123.png. It actually shows the name of the podcast episode in your file within the episode cover art. Because some people just download it on Canva, download it on Adobe, upload it as is, don't compress it, Don't rename the file. Don't even pay attention to the keywords in the file name, and then upload it on YouTube. And then 3 years later, you can't upload that same file because it's identical, right? You may have to redo the same video, but it's going to be on a different file name convention, right? So even when you look at YouTube, when you look at the section that your YouTube video thumbnail is on, there's a section that says the name of your file. It says file name, and that file name is grayed out. It says .mp4. You can everybody has that on YouTube. It says .mp4. You cannot change, even if that video has 1 million views, 2 billion views, you cannot change that specific file name. You can change the title, you can change the thumbnail, you can change the hashtag, you can change all that, but the file name, the root, which is where the establishments come from, you can't change that. So if you want to start correctly and start planting good soil and you start thinking about the algorithm stems from the root. So if you can be within the root directory, then you don't have to worry about the algorithm because you're doing things that actually match. Think about going to a library. If the library has books with A, B, A, C, A, D, A, E, A, F, if your book is in the AD section, that means the letter of your podcast is AD, let's say advertising, right? That's where your podcast is in the AD category because it has a file name that. But what if your podcast is talking about advertising and then the name of your episode is, so what are we talking about today? That is going to put you in the SO category, right? Of the library because it starts with SO. So you see where I'm going with this? You have to think about your business with every intention of creating value that expands the time that you actually spoke about something. Because if you spend 1 minute explaining a concept, you spend another minute explaining a concept, in 52 minutes, within 52 weeks, you've explained a concept that people understand, and then you can actually spend time with them offline. Because if someone's listening to that episode for 1 minute, of course, it's very short. So, of course, you may want to do more. But if the bare minimum is to get those 1 minute out the door, then do that by all means. So that by the time you're getting used to publishing, the next time you publish a 3 hour episode or 2 hour episode, it won't feel like "Ah, that's a lot of time." Because that time, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 10 years from now, you don't have to repeat what you said because it has already been said. And since it's been said, it's been recorded. And because it's been recorded, it's been transcribed. So you can go back to the text, you can go back to the context so that you can connect with the people who want to collect that information. So when you think about the words that you're saying, how you're saying these things, I don't have a script. I don't look at a dashboard. I don't have notes. This is off experience off the top. That's why this room can be long because I can keep going because there's so much I can say. But the moral of this story is to focus on building tenacity, building character, building a style, morphing it, right? Some people may like, if you notice, if you do podcast episodes that are interviews and solos, sometimes some people may just love listening to you. They might love listening to the people that you bring on your show. How will you know? Because you're going to look at the analytics. Those analytics will tell you this is what people like. This is what people don't like. These are the episodes people want to hear. These are the episodes people don't want to hear. So that you don't waste your time trying to figure out what works. In a cycle of 10 episodes, you should at least know which ones work, which ones don't. Your top 10 from 10 to 5, from 10 to 6, you can see the ones that are in the bottom half. Then from 5 to 1, you can see the ones in the top half. Then the ones from 1 to 5, go in and into those 1 to 5 and do the ABC method, right? If you're talking about advertising, advertising A, advertising alternatives, then advertising B, advertising best practices, advertising C, advertising, commercial stories or maybe case study, advertising case study. So you take the root file, the root folder, the root directory, the root word, the root key phrase, and then you phrase that according to the semantics of what you're trying to address contextually. So if you're talking about something in context to something you're referring to, then those things you're referring to have to make sense And they also have to make sense. SENSE and CENTS, because your time is valuable and whatever people are receiving is also valuable. So if they can actually see the value, not everyone does, but the ones who see it are the ones who benefit from that. So the title of this room is Podcasting with YouTube for Maximum Success. To get maximum success, you need to apply maximum effort. How do you apply maximum effort? By showing up in the maximum number of podcast directories you can. And if you're looking for where these places are, connect with me, connect with Sean, right? Connect with John as well. You know, shout out to John to connect with Dr. Fashion, right? Connect with Carrie, right? These are people who I can say 100%. If you're looking for a pathway with podcasting, YouTube, social, you can find them and they'll help you, because we're so connected here. Sometimes we're looking for the person that's going to help us and they're sitting right next to you. Like, oh yeah, I can help you, but you've gone online, you've searched on YouTube, you've gone to Reddit, and yet they were literally sitting next to you. So we want to save you time because we don't have that time to spend. We don't have that time to share, you know, and waste. We have it to invest. We don't have it to waste. So this was a great time, and I'm sure that you guys tasted a little bit of the time I spend now online as opposed to on Zoom. So this was great. I wanted to pass it to you, Sean. Is there anything you'd like to just let people know? Because if anyone wants to start a podcast, scale one, monetize one from day zero, what should they start thinking about?
Thanks, Favor. One of the things, shameless self promotion here, but we have a room called Podcast Pros Room. Just search for it here on Clubhouse. We do it every Tuesday and Thursday. And later on today, it's at 5 p.m. Eastern. We'll be talking about social media and specifically YouTube podcasts, putting your podcast on YouTube if people even watch video. So we're talking about that. But the first thing that people can do when they're starting out is to go listen to some other podcasts, but then figure out what they want to do, the intention behind it. And quickly, two things. I always suggest this, and then I'll wrap up here. If you can, take a marketing course. Go to community college, do it online, take a marketing course. There's a lot of free Google courses on analytics. Take that stuff. Even if you're creative and it may seem boring, then know that, okay, I'm not going to do this. Then I'll find somebody who can do this if none of that appeals to you. And the last thing is to be an avid listener of podcasts. And you'll know what's out there, where you need to be as far as production quality and what you like and don't like. And then you can implement that into yours. So if you can, join us in our rooms, Podcast Pros. If you're going to do it yourself, take a Google Analytics course or a marketing course, or decide you're going to farm that out. And thirdly, just start listening to podcasts. See what kind of podcast you like and how the production quality is and how far away you are from that. And then just start doing it. Everyone says that. But the reason I say that, so you can work out a workflow. A workflow is, okay, I'm going to have guests. We'll record on this day. I'll edit on this day. I'll do the artwork on this day. And you can fit it into your schedule and it won't be overwhelming.
I love that. If it's not on the schedule, it ain't happening. That is something that I've noticed across the board, corporate, private, business, public, it has to be there.
Well,
So
you
yes,
got
go
to
ahead, Sean.
give your life over to the calendar. That was very, very hard for me. But it saves you so much time and I get energy, brain power back. And I actually get more time. And it's funny. I wake up in the morning. What does the calendar say? And then that's it. I used to be, hey, you want to have a meeting? Sure, we'll do it on Friday. Yeah, I'll remember. No, you won't. Find a good calendar and stick to it.
100%. I'm so big on calendars. It's a thing. And even speaking of calendars, I use Calendly. I've been using Calendly
Yeah, me too.
since.
That's the only one I use, man.
Mm-hmm. And I love it so much because
It syncs other
it's cost effective.
calendars. You can put payment on there. it just takes care of everything. It sends emails, it sends the Zoom links, it does it all. It's an assistant. I love it.
It is. It's a beauty. It's a beauty, and I want to invite you guys to the link above here. You know, to get that 15-minute call with me one on one. It's 11:11 somewhere here Central Time, but then it's going to be 11:11 somewhere else too. But as I'm speaking, please click this link above if you want to get on that 15 call with me. If you have a website, if you're planning to build one, if you're thinking of what to do with your website, just click the link above and we're going to sort it out. Why I'm saying this too is because for the first time in a decade, for the first time in a decade, I'm revamping my website, the business website that is. We've revamped the logo. Now we're going to revamp the website. And why it took me this long is because we've been building websites for other people that I even like forgot about myself. In a way, I forgot about the business. So now it's now a way to now give back and do more, so that all the intellect, all the I already sketched out, what the website's going to look like, as I have this vision I've been having for a long time. Like, it's been in my mind for such a long time that it's finally happening, and is going to operate the way it's supposed to, because the people are there now. There's AI, and it's a whole system in place. So click the link above if you want to get on a 15 call with me for your audit, for your website, for your SEO. And it's not just Google, it's your social presence, it's your online presence. If your presence is broken, no one can connect with you because it needs fixing. It needs, a lot of pagination, if I can put it like that, making sure that your pages are actually active, they're reactive, they're dynamic, and they're responsive. So those are some things that we talk about in that 15-minute call. And then if you do want to continue with us, then we do have 4 pricing options we'll give you to choose within a 7-day period, because we prioritize on time and we want to take your time seriously. So we're not going to waste time in that process. We have a whole new business operating policy, and that's why I'm on Clubhouse for this long, because now we can serve clients at a larger pace. I don't have to be on Zoom every day. And we have a team operating in the background that is really active. And we're 21, 9, including myself, and then 12 AI. So it's a beautiful place, and it took a long time to get here. But now that it's here, we want to also make it good for you too. So please click the link above if that's your interest and you want to stay connected and actually scale this further, because you don't get 3 hours like this, on Zoom, unless it's something like we're doing really big. But I'm loving Clubhouse, and I love this space because I love to be here and I love to connect with people as well. Prem, wanted to come to you because you came out of the room, you came back in, and I wanted to, connect with you. But I'm glad you're back. You're a host of the Plush Jungle Show. So tell us about that. And if you have a question for us, please feel free to say it.
Hey, thank you very much for giving me this space. My name is Prem, and yes, I am hosting a podcast called The Plus Jungle Show. It's been quite some time, but we've been like on and off about this. I do have a question though, because I'm in the midst of I'm a little confused about. So, Plus Jungle is basically, in a nutshell, a furniture business that we have, and this is the podcast is just I started something which was more like to connect with as many people and successful minds to kind of interview them and talk to them, and just get to know them, and more like a networking point for me as well. But then I just thought that maybe I should have a personal brand and then start something personally, because this is like connected with my business, which is only about furniture, handicraft, and stuff like that. So my question would be, and wouldn't take much of your time, but is should I start a personal podcast with a separate name, with maybe like Conversation with Prem or something, or just do the same thing on the same show, like the Plus Jungle Show, which is more related to my business, as I said.
Great question. I would keep it to just your one, the because as you were speaking, I went to Plus Jungle Show, and I like the red, the orange, the yellow. Like, even your shirt is yellow, like the background is yellow. It's very intentional. So I can see that you're using these, as well to push. I'm looking at it from Apple, so it may be different on other platforms. But for your question, I think the best way to go about it is, if you don't have a brand online, or if you don't have that presence online that actually shows your personal branding, then use your podcast as a branding fork to anchor that through the audience, so that when you have your episodes, because it's your show, you call the shots. So if you're calling the shots, then some episodes could be a mixture of you've been having conversations with people. Then one of your episodes could be a break. Think about it like a show, so people can connect with you that way and build into your into your practice, build into your episodes, learn more about you, give them a little bit of some insights about you, because you also don't want to confuse the audience. So that's what I've done for my podcast show. Sometimes I can give you a little story about my life, about what I've gone through, what my experiences are, what I've come with, what I've found, and I put that into the episode, and people actually listen to those episodes. So I don't want you creating a whole new show for one concept that you could bring into the full picture, which is already existing. That way you save time on production, you save time on marketing. You end up having two marketing budgets. That's really what it boils down to, two financial breakdowns. So instead of you breaking it down into multiples, use that one scale, linear it out, and scale it through so that you can actually connect with people. And the ones who do connect with you, you have an email list that you can actually pour that personal branding into your business. So yeah, that's what I would tell you. Does that help you, Prim?
Yeah, so I think what you're saying is that to stay on the Plus Jungle show, and then even if I'm having a, because I also didn't wanted to have a niche down on the podcast. I wanted to have like guests from different genres, like spirituality to business to entrepreneurs. Did have a monk also on a podcast last year. So I did not want to confuse the audience, like what is this about, because sometimes people keep saying that you got to niche it down, you got to niche it down, because then people won't listen to your podcast because they are like, okay, this guy is now getting a monk on the show. So I didn't want it to be kind of limited to the genre. So I thought maybe I should start my personal brand like Prem on Instagram and on everywhere, and then on YouTube, and then have a show called like Conversation with Prem or something, and then maybe there I can have all the other kind of people that I want to have on the show. But I do get your point. What you're saying is, because it definitely makes a lot of sense, because then it's like double the time for me to kind of incorporate on two different platforms, on two different podcasts. And so yeah, I mean, I was just in the midst of like starting something called Conversation with Prem, but I just found your this thing in Clubhouse, and I thought, let me just hop in and talk to you. So yeah, I'm glad that I came across your channel here.
Thank you so much, Prem, for following. And yes, for your conversations with Prem, those could be episode series you could create off the bat, because episodes on podcasts is seasons and episodes. So when you can have those seasons and episodes, then you can always create series within those episodes. So you can have conversations with Prim, and then that just shows up in between. So when people are scaling or scrolling down on your page, they can know that, okay, this is a series continuation. You might use the same cover art for the same thing, just to distinguish them out, so that when people see them, they can identify what it is. Like for me, when I have my podcast episodes out there, I tell them, hey, this is a Clubhouse audio room, because they may think it's recorded, but it's Clubhouse audio, and people want to tap in because they feel like they've not been on Clubhouse or they've heard of it. So even that experience alone is kind of like FOMO oriented, but also heavily engaged, because they feel like, oh, wow, this is actually happening in the world out there. So you're getting exposed to those areas that people feel connected to you than just being a one-on-one or solo. So that's something you can do just to give more spice and sugar, if I can say it like that, to your content, and then let people connect. Let them decide. Let the people decide. Don't decide for them, because if you decide for them, that's reactive, that's explosive, and that's not good for the business overall. So when they decide and it's willing, then there's no resistance in between. So thank you so much for that, Prem, and thank you for joining the room today. So before we wrap this up in less than 10 minutes, Crystal and Lisa, anyone can go first. What have your thoughts been? Because I know you've been in the room. There's been a lot to take in, a lot to soak in. What is a major key takeaway for you? And anyone as well that's in the audience, please put it in the chat, because I'd love to hear your feedback. Some of you have been here for over an hour. So I'd love to know what is working, what you need help with, what you learned, so I can also bring it back here and do this again, possibly tomorrow. So Crystal or Lisa, one of you could start. Okay. Yeah, because I know time is really over. So can talk, but I think it's just the fact that it can be done and should be done. I love that. Simple, straightforward, boom. That's good. Thank you so much for that. And yeah, Crystal says the same thing too. So I'm sure you're probably not able to speak, but I appreciate the feedback in the chat. Yeah, it's just based on where you want to go, how you want to do things, and where you really see yourself long term. So podcasting is the best thing since sliced bread because what I've just been doing with you guys has been podcasting. That's really what it's been. Like if you've been listening to this episode, it's a whole podcast. You know when they say the Joe Rogan episodes are 2 hours, 3 hours, this is what it looks like. This is real time reality. You know, it's a reality check too. So when you look at where you're sending it through, mediums, RSS feeds, pushes, podcasts, all that great stuff, people will connect with you. Like I've talked about email marketing a lot. I've talked about AI a lot, first party data, Pinterest marketing, SEO, you know, all the good things that people are looking out for now because when they hear this information, they can take a little bit, even if it's not the whole thing, but just a little bit and act on it. And then they can change so much for their business long term. So the more I'm able to help people, the more satisfied I am and the more valuable you are as well to your community because it's a shine on shine through. It's something that we have to do on a consistent basis. So yeah, this was a room that we had to cover, and I'm glad you guys were able to be here today. Thank you, Crystal. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Prim. Dr. Fashion, you've been here so much. Thank you for your time with us today. Hopefully you could have been able to speak, but I know you're busy. But thank you so much for joining us. Ryan, thanks again. Dahlia, good to have you here. Thanks again for being here. Austin, good to see you. Pete, Ebuka, and Kuku, thank you all so much for being here. You guys are all amazing. Feel free to stay connected with me here on the app, on Clubhouse. Follow me. I do have rooms. I am the leader here in the marketing club where we are borderline 350K members. We're 348.9K right now. So I know by the end of this year, we're probably going to be tipping on that 350. I'm not the owner of this house, but I've been actively running this house for the past 3 years. Yeah, 2024. Yeah, 3 years now. So it's been a journey and I've met a lot of great people here. So yeah, we're connected. And if you want to also, connect with me on Chatter, let me know. My community is growing there too. If you need an invite, let me know. I'm gonna pull you in too. So a lot of good things, are happening. I just wanted to give you my time here because once this room closes down, that's it. And then we have to do this again another day. But I like to answer people's questions. I like to connect. But if you want to connect further, please click the link above or save this replay to get this link so you can book a call with me and we can audit your website, audit your platform back to back, give you a scale and let you know how to use your business long term so you can actually excel in life and excel as a brand. So with that said, thank you all. Enjoy your wonderful day. Happy Taco Tuesday. And I'm going to see y'all in the rooms. Take care.